It is so good to be back here with you, sir. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I have a confession to make, people. We were both here within plenty of time to start the stream on time. But Robert and I, we got to talking. We got to talking about something that we're both very passionate about. Before we knew it, 15 minutes had flown by. But if it's any consolation to you guys and gals, we've decided after we do The Prisoner, we're going to do a stream about what we were talking about.
Yeah, we'll keep that a secret.
Yeah, it should be a lot. We're going to keep it a secret. It should be a lot of fun. Wonderful to have you back, sir. Wonderful to be back.
It's great. I was worried it was going to be your funeral, so I'm glad it wasn't.
It could have been my funeral.
Then I would have had to do the show myself, and I would have been very sad.
Then I would have kind of gone out as a number 2, and I'm okay with that.
You would have gone out as number 1.
Hey!
You would have gone out as number 1.
This episode is great for multiple reasons. First of all, it's just a fun episode.
Right, it's fun.
Secondly, it's messy. It's all over the place from a director point of view. It's all over the place from a continuity point of view. There's mistakes all over the place.
A lot of stock footage.
A lot of interchanged footage, which again makes plenty of mistakes. However, it's The Prisoner, and even when they have to cut corners, and even when Patrick McGowan's going through a mental breakdown, which he was right about now, it still comes out great. And I just want to start off by saying the majority number 2, which we'll get to, Darren Nesbitt, when he was interviewed about this episode, he said, I hadn't a clue what was going on. Not a clue. I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt as if I was just playing the character of number 2, complete and utterly confused, because I was. And I think this is a fantastic number 2 performance.
I love him. Love him. I mean, from the very beginning, he plays it like a naughty English schoolboy.
Yeah, he's a young number 2, and he's a mischievous number 2.
Yeah, and it looks like he just came from some swinging party in London, baby. Yeah, with his blonde hair and his
hair,
and his
black glasses.
And it's like this. I want to party with this guy. When he's not in the village, he's clearly. I mean, I don't know if they had DJs back in late '60s London, but he's some he owns a club. He's some club impresario that probably has his own fashion line. I love this guy. Love him.
And a lovely little fact, Darren Nesbitt is still with us. He's 85, but he's still with us today. And every time I've seen him interviewed, he just comes across as such a jovial, somebody that's just so passionate about the theater and treading the boards and his craft and his art. But there's a joy to it. There's not a pomposity to it.
Right.
There's just a joy to it. And I thought it exuded in his performance, regardless of whether or not he thought he was confused, regardless of whether or not he didn't understand what was going on. To me, his performance was fantastic. And I thought it just blended so well with the episode itself.
No, absolutely. And he's clearly having a great time. I mean, he's practically grinning through the whole thing and up until the end. But he's having a really good time.
And I love the look. He was the quintessential what was it called? London in the 60s. They used to call it, whatever it was. It was the town that he would fit in. Like you said, he was Austin Powers.
Right. Yeah.
But on the wrong side.
Right. No,
he's the anti-Austin Powers.
yeah, absolutely. And it was great.
The trendy as hell. Everything that he had on just seemed to fit.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Everything hung perfectly on him. His bleach hair, the extra thick glasses were just so absurd, and they worked.
Delightful.
This guy was just great, and the plot that was involved in this episode feeds into it so well. But we start the episode with another geek legend, another cult legend, Annette Andre. Absolutely bloody gorgeous.
Yeah, she is. You know, when she shows up, you're like, wait, what show is this?
Yeah. Hello? Pulse?
Yeah.
Have I got a pulse?
I mean, everything, her angelic face, her hair, you know, and what is she doing? She's creeping in and coming into your house and waking you up. Is this not a fantasy that we all have? I want her to wake me up before I go.
Yes, she could. And she's still with us as well. Even 81, I think about it. But she was, of course, Randall Hawkirk deceased. She was the alive one. So it was her creep. Now it's actually Annette Andre who said that she hated this experience. She hated this episode, not the episode itself per se, but McGowan. She said McGowan was just impossible to work with. He was cold. He was constantly having rage tantrums. This is when McGowan, by the filming of this, is losing his fucking mind, people. And she said it was a horrible environment for her to work in. It was just impossible. So she hated this. You wouldn't have thought so. She's a consummate professional.
Yeah.
Absolute consummate professional. Creeps in, I think she's number 50, but we only get referred to her as the watchmaker's daughter.
You can never see her number.
No, it's black and it's got a red number. So I've gone through the episode and it's either 30 or 50.
Yeah, I was so annoying. I was doing the same thing. I'm like, wait, what's her? And they would frame it so you couldn't, like, her number was just below the frame line, so you couldn't see what it was.
Yeah, there was literally just one point in the episode where you got a shot as good as you're gonna get.
Right.
To see. And I was like, it's either 50 or it's 30, but she's referred to as the watchmaker's daughter in this episode. She wanders into number 6's residence. The door opens. She just goes in. You can tell something's wrong because she's kind of zombified. She's entranced. She's walking in. She doesn't look in control of her faculties. Then she reaches out to... Well, then you get the good thing was when she goes into the door, the camera sort of pans out so you see the screen of number 2 watching. Right. So you as the audience are already invited into the fact that this is a plot. It
is a plot, and you know, and number 6 knows too. You know, he knows it's revealed that reverse when you see that his eyes are open. He's like waiting for her, like, what's going on? Okay, here we go again.
But this, to me anyway, I think this is another nod at an intelligent audience.
Right.
This is another nod to say, hey, look, if we try and do this as if number 6 doesn't know what's going on, that's insulting your intelligence for the way that we've put the show together. So everyone's got to be in the know immediately that this is a plot by number 2. Number 6 has got to be in on it. You've got to be on it because you know it is going to be. So I think it's a nod to treat the audience with a bit of respect. I think it's a nod to say, you know, the people who are watching this are an intelligent audience. You get what's going on. She tries to wake. Sorry, go on.
Oh no. Well, I was going to say it also has one of my favorite things, my favorite number 2 exchanges right after this. And he says to a man that we've already seen established, I forget his number, the security, the supervisor. The supervisor, number 2, like, yells at the supervisor and goes, "Wait a minute, dude, what's up with the unlocked door? Like, this is not."
She walked through a door.
Yeah, and the supervisor, well, I thought it was a random element. He goes, number 2 is like, that wasn't part of my plan. Like, come on, man. Like, he knows then if the door is unlocked, number 6 is, and I really like the fact that there was sort of dissension in the ranks of the inner sanctum of number 2. Like, number 2 is like, dude, you don't improvise. Like, if I tell you to do something, you do it my way.
Yes.
And I thought that was a really interesting choice, that we're seeing like workplace banter from our villains, and you don't really see a lot of that. You certainly don't see, because that our security guy always looks like, man, that guy's on top of it. They call him when they want to know what's going on, and this number 2 was like yelling at the dude, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I really like Darren Nesbitt's number 2, because there's multiple moments where it almost feels as if they're filming with the cameras, even though they've said cut. If you don't know, he's so laid back and relaxed about everything. And one of the beauties of this episode is this episode also highlights that even in the village, it's just a mess of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
You know, you've got 3 people literally next to each other, one handing a piece to them, to hand to a piece to them, to hand into a thing, to give to number 2. Number 2 don't want it. Number 2 wants you to read the thing. You read the thing. You get to the point, stops it. It's just complete red tape. And it's a waste. All these people are a waste of number 2 could have done everything.
Right. Yeah. He reminded me of a film director, kind of. He's like, look, I've got this all set up. I'm directing my scene here. And who are you to screw it up? You know, he reminded me of Peter O'Toole in the movie The Stuntman. Peter O'Toole's the director of that. Yeah. And you know, you don't do things that I don't plan. Yeah. So don't do that. And I thought that was an interesting choice for our group. And then of course he has to get it, number 2 has to get it back on track. But he knows that he's got the one thing that number 6 can't resist, which is a beautiful woman in distress.
Well, we are playing to 60s chivalry here. We are playing to the role of damsel in distress. And number 6 is a chivalrous male. And so, of course, how can he resist after they force her to pass out? I love this whole sequence. Yeah. Because when she passed out, it looks very contrived. And you can just imagine number 6 rolling his eyes and being like, here we go again. And he is too. I mean, he's playing it like. But when he goes up to her, he's looking at her pupils and he's saying, you're dilated, you've been drugged. I think he understands. He actually realizes then that she is part of the plot, but she doesn't necessarily know what her role is. Right. So I think given the way that she responded to him and the way that she kind of storms out and she doesn't try and say, oh, no, please, you got to. It's just like, get out of here, mate, then. You know, whatever. You ain't going to help. Whatever. I've tried. Piss off. Yeah, and I'm out of here. You know, she doesn't try and do what the other maids were doing at the start of the series. They were coming back. They were pleading. They were bargaining. They were trying manipulative tactics. Now, as far as she's concerned, now she's gone. She's out. I tried. Don't work. I'm coming to this guy because this guy in the village is the most reputable person here. And if I can convince this person, then he can convince number 2. There's going to be problems. But he's doing the great thing, which is just, doesn't matter what you've told me. I don't have to tell anyone. They've already heard because everything's fucking bugged. Everything's bugged. They're listening in now. Because this is a whole ploy by them anyway. You've told me. Thanks. Goodbye. Have a nice life. And she's all right, fine. Out of here. And I do like how number 6 is totally playing to number 2 and the village's cameras. Oh yeah, he's like, look, they already know. Come on, and he starts playing to the cameras, and it's great. Yeah, he's seen this game many times now, and he's sick of it. He's bored with it. Let's get to it.
Yeah, whatever the plot
Let's
is,
get to it,
we don't need any. We don't need an act one here. Let's
Yes.
just go to act 2, or let's better yet go to act 3. Why are we, what is all this?
Let's skip the bollocks. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind the bollocks. Let's get to it. What's the thing? Number 2 is going to be assassinated. Right, there you go. You've heard.
Well,
You've heard.
she does bring up a really interesting concept that there are people in the village that, what are they called? They're like not
jammers.
Yeah, the jammers. And that's an interesting wrinkle, that number 6 hasn't really heard before, and neither have we. So I thought that was sort of an interesting notion.
Yeah, it was interesting because they have to go to number 6 because he's the only credible person left.
Right.
And I imagine the Duke from Checkmate, he was probably a jammer.
Yeah.
He was probably somebody, because he admitted in the episode, he said, I like fucking with them.
Right.
They've got everything they need off me, but I still keep fucking with them because I can.
Right.
So, but he doesn't have any sway anymore. It's just like, oh, the Duke's at it again, sort of business. But number 6, this is somebody who legit means business. This is somebody who has credibility. This is somebody who hasn't been broken. This is somebody who's fought back, who's actually won a couple of small victories. This is the man to go to. This is the person. And then we get what turns out to be a horrendous continuity error, where the computer is told to predict number 6's day. So it says 6:30 in the morning, he goes around in his walk around the village. Such and time he does this. Such and time he goes and plays chess. Such and time he drinks at the coffee, buys a newspaper afterwards. And then they get to the 9 a.m. and it's like, well, it's 9 a.m. now. So what's he going to do? And then they go, well, he's now on his walk around the village. I'm like, no, that was 6:30.
Yeah.
You're just repeating his cycle again. No, that's not how it, no. So the big continuity error there, but.
By the way, for this computer, I have to point out, I was talking to you about this earlier, that I guess she's credited as computer technician number 2. The actress, another great beauty, by the way, is Wanda Ventum, who later goes on to play Colonel Virginia Lake in UFO. She's also Benedict Cumberbatch's mother, which is sort of so if you like the Batch, Benedict Cumberbatch's mom is another hottie, another delicious young female that shows up and runs, I guess, this computer. But another really interesting, what I like about this idea of the computer is, despite the continuity error, they talk about how it has this predictive model of behavior and how it can use quantum.
It's algorithms. It's predicting algorithms.
And
how
even
cool is that?
It's really cool. And even I was thinking about Alex Garland's show Devs that was on, and they have the ultimate version of that computer. And it goes back to things like in the Foundation books by Asimov, the idea of psychohistory, that these algorithms can predict the rise and fall of empires now because they have such incredible the more information you feed into these computers, the more their algorithms can be correct. And I thought that was pretty forward thinking, that whole idea of what, and they have the scene where when she goes to see number 2 about the predictive nature, they say that, well, he's going to buy sweets at 10 o'clock. And number 2 is like, he doesn't buy sweets. Give me a break. And then you find out he's buying sweets for an old lady whose credits had run out. And I thought that was a nice character touch, that number 6 would do that, that he would buy sweets for an old lady.
But I also like the fact that the computer had predicted, the algorithm had predicted that these events would lead to this outcome. So I could always imagine number 6 doing that, regardless of whether or not he trusted the person or not. It's just a polite thing to do. We've seen multiple times in the series. He's a gentleman.
Yes.
He's a gentleman.
But it was sweets for the sweet. I enjoyed that.
Sweet for the sweet grandma.
Yeah. And I love the fact you do hear, we meet a couple of the grandma being one, but then we meet the watchmaker later, who says there are people that are here for life. And I like when they reiterate that. I mean, we've got the old folks home, so we know that, but I mean, maybe, like, I always get the idea in this episode too, that maybe you can decide if you want that you can retire to the village. Like, there's people that choose to go there to spend their twilight years because they are offered, like, you can be retired or you can go to our nice, fine resting home for the elderly if you'd like, because they need people to live there. They need, and I'm like, I kind of like if I was given the opportunity to spend my twilight years in the village, would you go? I'm thinking to myself, there were places that there are less desirable places to spend your twilight years. I'd go to the village. Why not? You have an old folks home. You got the beach.
Well, it's all super. Well, that was one interesting thing when they were predicting what his day was. After his exercise, he cools off. How did he cool off? He was water skiing. There's a couple of amazing physical activities, and we'll get into it a little later, but the water skiing was amazing. Amazing. And then how on earth do they allow how on earth did they allow that? And B, how on earth did they allow number 6 to do that?
I mean, it's just, well, I guess I thought that was hilarious. And also, we see it later, but there's a really interesting physical fitness regimen.
Yes,
that we see that I mean, I was like, I didn't look it up before we went on the show. I'm like, is that a real thing? Because I would think in terms of getting agility, and well, we'll get to it later what he goes and does. But I love.
I mean, we're essentially going through this now. This is where he goes on. He's created his own apparatus. He has like a high bar. He has a punching bag.
The thing I was referring to comes later, but yeah, this is interesting where he's like, it's in the woods somewhere, and there's that crack they've got on camera, and they're like, well, they think it's his clandestine workout room, but here we have a camera on it too.
Oh yeah, but this it actually makes another appearance in Change of Mind.
Yep, yes, it does.
When he's because he starts off there being a mutual, and then he gets mutual, and then he gets unmutual again.
Yeah.
And then we have the lovely camp painter, the effeminate painter, clearly gay. I think clearly gay.
Yeah. Oh, I could say there's a case to be made for our number 2 as well.
Darren Nesbitt with Mark Ellis. Is it Mark Ellis?
He's just kind of a dandy.
Oh, he's a dandy. Yeah, you could see him swinging. Mark Eden, not Ellis. Mark Eden.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, there was, like I said, there was
and then we've there
was an element about him. There was a sort of anything goes kind of attitude to him.
Our pink jacketed mysterious agent.
Yes, because I mean, that is it. He's very laid back. He's, for want of a better phrase, he's kind of twink-esque.
Yeah.
And then you've got his top in the pink jacket.
I think that was quite intentional, to be honest.
I think there's something to be. I think there was something there. I think there. I don't think you could interpret it how you want.
Sure.
Because I don't think pink is necessarily in the village an effeminate color. I think it's meant to be a Mediterranean color. But at the same time, there is something about the personality that was just kind of that lends itself to interpretation.
And I like that. I mean, I thought it was an interesting, it was a good choice.
When the audience is allowed to play with the narrative in their brain, it lends itself to nuance.
I liked it.
I like that. So yes, I think there was a sort of dandy element to him. But the painter was very effeminate, very sort of, ooh. And it's just, I don't know, he was lovely. He was just,
and I do love when he finally shows the painting to number 6. Good likeness, don't you think? And it's this great abstract. I loved it.
Yeah, number 6 is just like perfect, and it's just
Perfect.
like, he's just been, he's just accepting this wonderful praise. It's great stuff.
I mean, I love the fact that the perfect likeness of number 6 is this completely ambiguous, avant-garde look into his psyche for a minute. I just love it.
There's very few times we actually get to see these elements of the prisoner.
Right.
These everyday mundanes, these everyday interactions. And with it being number 6, suddenly the just the mere nuance of having a cup of coffee at the cafe takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that if somebody's going to paint the portrait of number 6 in the village, if you could have painted a portrait of him, that means you would have understood him. And by having that abstraction, the painter delights in the abstraction, whereas number 2 and the powers that be want to look beyond the abstraction. They want to see the number 6 that they understand.
Sure.
The information they're trying to extract from him is that, right? And it is that painting is the mystery of the whole is the mystery of number 6 in one image for the powers that be. They need to go beyond that. They wouldn't understand that, whereas our painter delights in it. I'm delighted. I see you, and it's wonderful.
Me, I felt the most interesting aspect was every day he buys tally ho, and you could think, say, why? He knows it's a propaganda, but it also says he's keeping abreast. He's always making sure that he's on top of whatever they're doing. Whatever story they're wanting to spin, whatever narrative they're playing with. And maybe it opens itself up to, well, they're doing this over here. Why? Keeping his mind constantly active, keeping him ticking away.
And his body, too. I mean, he has a pretty hardcore physical fitness regimen that I'm like, this guy's on it, man. And it just reiterates that, he's not just resisting in mind, he's resisting in body and soul as well. And I thought that was great. I mean, it made me feel, as I'm watching, I'm like, oh, as I get slovenly in my old age and my man breasts are getting bigger every day, I got to get into the prisoner physical fitness regimen and get myself hard and tight.
Well, if there's any consolation, it was McGowan's double doing the exercise.
I know. But still.
But not that McGowan was any slouch, can we just say? But yeah, it was actually his double. But I mean, we see it when he's doing what do they call it? Cossack?
Yeah.
Koi carpish?
I love this. I want to play this game.
But there we see when he dismounts, just as a lovely little Salco, whatever twist back.
Yeah.
Twist.
But that game, I mean, I love that. Seeing that, I don't know if that's a real thing, or is that like Dom Jock and this is created from the mind of a madman. I mean, I'm like, I would play that game. I would get on. It's a cross between.
We're not there yet, though.
Yes, we're not there yet.
Because I got a lot to say about that. Because that plays batshit crazy, and it's great at the same time. By the way, so yes, we have little bit of information. By the way, when he's at the old people's home, there is a flagpole up in the village. It's actually displaying the Welsh flag. But, yeah, blink and you miss it. So he goes and predicts everything. We have I would say number 100, but it's not. Because Darren Nesbitt, number 2, refers to him as number 100. Not 100, 100. There you go. But yes, they're having their little chat as they're going through the number 6 day. The woman comes in, Benedict Cumberbunch's mum comes in, gives the thing, and then they say he goes at 11 o'clock or whatever to his weekly Cossack game, which is the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life. There are 2 trampolines, one on each side. In the middle of the trampoline, there's a mini swimming pool of water. There are raised backs, and there's a raised one side and an open front. And it looks like the rules are beat the shit out of your opponent and dunk him in the water.
Right. And they're jumping up on the railings and jumping across and they're smacking on each other as they pass in the air. I mean, it's hard to be on a trampoline just jumping up and down, but trying to fight on them.
I keep hitting myself in the chin whenever I bounce on a thing.
Yeah, I'm like, I just wanted to play it. I'd forgotten about that. And I'm like, get me on that. I would definitely
this is where we have another horrific continuity error.
Yeah.
Because we start off with his opponent, and then it cuts to a completely different person constantly. Because in a later episode, he will have a fight with this person.
Yeah.
With the Kosho. So they just used leftover footage of that, whacked it in.
Yeah.
And we got a bunch of this. We got a bunch of 2 people. But yeah, you are bouncing on the sides. You are jumping down. You're grabbing each other. You're flipping each other. You're tossing each other. You're running away. It felt like 5 minutes of it, but it'd probably be like a minute and a half. But
yeah,
it felt like a 5-minute Kosho fight. It was mesmerizing to watch.
It was completely. And when they pass each other in the air and like smack each other in the face, it was like, man.
Well, you've got one normal hand, and then you got almost like a baseball mitt in the other, which they're lamping themselves with. They've got like an old school American football helmet on without the grill or anything. This is a barbaric.
It reminded me in the second season of Next Generation when Kyle Riker, when Riker's father comes on board the Enterprise, and they have the
evolution of martial arts.
The evolution of martial arts, and it reminded me of that.
It was the thing from Gladiators.
I mean, I have a certain love when science fiction shows have their like Battlestar Galactica had Triad. The game, the original Galactic Triad, which is like a game with a ball, kind of a cross between
there's also Parisi Squares.
Parisi Squares.
Yes. So yeah, there's every sci-fi show seems to have its bizarre sport.
Yeah.
But always there's always a foundation in a legitimate sport.
Yeah.
And this was, I mean, you could, The Prisoner is part sci-fi. So I think it's perfectly okay for them to do something like this. Would you rather have this or a game of tennis? I would rather have Kosho.
Yeah, me too.
I'd rather have this crazy ass dress wearing, baseball bat, swimming pool, trampoline twatting evolution of martial arts.
But there is a legitimacy. Like, it is hard to be on a trampoline and fight with somebody. It's hard enough. It's hard enough just to keep bouncing up and down on a trampoline and not fly off of it. So it was, I'd love to know how. Like, I should look into this because there must be some commentary somewhere in some book on the prisoners how they came up with this particular sport.
Well, I think I heard something where when they introduced it, I think it was a Magoon invention. Surprise.
Okay, yes, there you go.
When it was introduced, I think I heard that the behind the scene David Tomlin and people were just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, what is this?
He's lost it.
The stunt man. Can you imagine the stunt team on the show going like, wait, what are we gonna do for this scene?
What?
Wait, what?
But to me, it seems to have a flow of tennis.
Yeah,
You know, you seem to you'd have your slices and you down the lines, and then you suddenly get into your backhand, your backhand, your backhand, your backhand, your back. Then you'd go for your play. It seemed to have that same sort of flow of a tennis rally. Can start off, can equalize, can get very aggressive. That often leads to the result.
Right.
And ended with Magoon jumping up to the top. The other guy trying to jump up slips. Magoon grabs, throws him into the swimming pool. Then just bounces down and then backflips onto the ground. But while
he nailed that dismount.
That dismount is great. It's great. I think I did that when I was 14 years old. I've never done one since. But while he's doing that, number 100, the topper, he goes and switches out number 6's watch from the changing rooms, and he replaces it with a exact replica, but it's just stopped.
It doesn't work
because they have their next part of the plan, which is to push number 6 to go to see the watch key. I'm going to actually hold on. I've got it open here. When does the Kosho start? The Kosho starts at approximately 16 minutes 51. When does it finish? When? Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm not even joking.
Are they
it
padding up?
Finishes at 1950. This is 3 minutes. 3 minutes of Kosho.
Well, they did have to show us in the middle of it all the watch getting replaced. That's some intrigue going on in there.
But he stops to watch. He stops to watch them play. Now then, here we go. Let's play. He's watching two men get it on. It plays into the narrative. It plays into our topper narrative. He's watching, he's smiling, he's enjoying this physicality between these two men.
So are you saying then that perhaps that It's Your Funeral might be the most covertly homoerotic episode of The Prisoner?
Yes. I think yes.
I think we're onto something here.
And I think Magoon might actually be...
If you want to take it further, it does end with a man being splashed in the pool. One guy is splashing all over another. So there you go.
You're gonna have a field day with this one.
We do have the money shot.
Yeah.
And Patrick McGowan would then he was on top.
He was on top. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was going through a breakdown. Who knows what was going through his head at the time? Who knows? So his watch is broken. He goes to the never seen before watchmaker's shop.
And not only is it a watchmaker, this is a full-on antiques from all over the world. Yes. Like this is in central London, you probably couldn't find a better watchmaking shop.
Well, unless it's on Savile Row.
Right.
But I don't think that if you open up the door, because when he opens up the door to go in, there's a sign outside. And what does it say?
I don't remember.
Cafe.
Oh. Well, so much for the continuity there.
There was a lot of errors in this one.
Or maybe the watch shop is so exclusive that you have to know it's there, and that's only to keep the riffraff out.
Let's say it's the other side of the cafe.
Yeah, it's the other side. Yeah, the cafe is just next door.
Robert, we've got to play a game now. I will accept one answer and one answer only. This next scene between Magoon and the watchmaker. What film Does
Oh.
this remind you of?
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Take
Chat.
back one.
I'm actually going to introduce the chat. Chat. This scene. There is a. Oh yes, somebody's got it.
Top Gun.
Somebody has got it. Top Secret.
Oh, dude, I haven't
With Peter Cushing and Val Kilmer.
I have not seen that for ages, but yes.
PLL 9000. You and me, son. You and me. Yeah, to me, this was. I couldn't help but chuckle when I watched this scene. There's nothing comedic about it,
Right?
but it just the way that it's put together, the way that the watchmaker is so distressed, just reminded me of that scene with Peter Cushing and Top Secret, and I am just.
I think that would be very intentional. I think that again, I only saw Top Secret once, although I did I just ordered the a Blu-ray of it. But with Peter Cushing and Val Kilmer, I mean, Top Secret, all that, I'm sure it was intentional.
I think I mean, not maybe necessarily this episode, but I think old 60s spy.
Yeah,
because it was lampooning. It's the Zucker brothers. It's lampooning the genre, and the beauty about the Zucker brothers is the Zucker brothers love what they're taking the piss out of.
Oh yeah, and also this episode it feeds into more of the 60s spy thriller. Somebody's going to be assassinated. We've got a device, what the watchmaker is making. I mean, it's very much
Danger Man episode.
Yes.
This is a Danger Man episode, and so it's so that's why I think the Zucker brothers films are just so funny, because when you lampoon something from a position of love, you make sure everything works. You make sure you don't mock it. You satirize it, and there's a difference. I think that got lost somewhere along the way.
Well, I think that's
like, hey, let's mock superhero. No. You got to love superhero films.
I completely agree, because Airplane's the same way. And if you look at like other things,
movies,
the other parody movies, like whether you're talking about Hot Shots or things like that, they're just making fun of things, and not a satire and a parody are two different things, really.
Yes.
So I completely agree with you.
So I think that's why things like Top Secret have stuck with me all these years, and I still think Airplane 2, some of the funniest comedy you're ever going to watch in your life.
Because they work as movies. If you took the comedy away, they could still
the
plot works, and that's exactly right.
Oh,
I like that somebody was on your, I don't know Top Secret well enough to have I was thinking about something else, but I was thinking about the old when they're showing him the headpiece of the staff of Ra. The guy. That's what I was thinking. Is it that?
I was thinking the magnifying glass, and when he pulls away the magnifying glass, he's still got the
I love that. So funny.
That's what I think. That's what I think every time I see that. But yeah, it was just great. It was great that Top Secret is 84.
Yeah, something
around
like
84-ish. Let's say 84-ish. Somebody, I'm sure, will put the correct year in there. But let's say Top Secret's 84-ish. That's 15, 16, 17 years after this. So this is this is just people who love the spy genre.
And remember, The Prisoner aired in the United States not
a year later.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it was on PBS in like the late 70s, early 80s. And so they could have seen it this would have been fresh in their minds when they came up with that script. So
I melt on it. Sorry. People are quoting Top Secret in the chat now. I gotta move on. But yes, this scene is just a classic 60s spy espionage. You could put this in, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, I mean it respectfully. You could put this in any spy thriller. You could put it in a John le Carre. You could put it in a Bond. You could put it in anything, and it would work, because this is an earnest show, and this is done in an earnest manner.
Absolutely.
So it works. So you don't. It's ridiculous, because where the hell has a clock shop sprung up from in the village? Why has this never been mentioned before?
I just love, and it's so, I mean, there's a lot in it. You go into the other stores, but this one is lush.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like, did they have a set from something else going on at the studio? Like, this set's here. Why don't we, let's write this into the show, and figure out a way to use it.
Can't believe. I mean, look, it could well be, but I just cannot believe that this would be a custom-made set for this episode alone.
No way. There's too much in it.
This has got to have been from something else, used for something else, and they've got, hey, we got access to this while we're at the sound studio. This is perfect. Yeah. Works perfectly for. But you know something? Because the budget of The Prisoner was pretty high for the day, I just got this weird feeling. That it was made for this episode. So he gives it to the watchmaker. The watchmaker says, I'll go, leave it with me. Goes off to fix it. Number 6 has got a genuine curiosity about him. So he's just having a little look around, sees a device, flicks the switch. Operates another device, which is hitting a trigger, and he's like, works out that this is a detonator switch. So the watchmaker fixes the watch, gives it to number 6, snatches back his detonator switch, which he's working on. What's this? Number 6 says, of course he's German, even though his daughter's quintessentially English.
Right.
He, of course, is the mad European scientist. I makes the crazy things from the brain.
He looks like Einstein.
Yeah, looks like Einstein. That's why he's just such a top
secret. The German Einstein.
Yeah.
Coming over.
This is just a toy. It's just a toy. And then number 6 skedaddles, and then Topper comes out. Topper Harris comes out with his pink top on. And which is set up, because it's set up in his first meeting with number 2. Number 2 says to him, how's your assignment going? And he's like, working out. He's working out perfectly.
Yeah.
So he comes out, and the watchmaker's like, why must we tell our enemies the plan? Why? Well, it's because they don't believe us. So we show them they don't believe us. It allows us to carry on with everything out in the open. And then, of course, it turns out that the watchmaker, he bumps, number 6, he bumps into, I'm going to say number 30 Fiddy. Number 30 Fiddy. Bumps into 30 Fiddy, and she says, you met my father. You mean the German? Why aren't you German? Don't need to go. We don't need to go there. Why also is he 85 and you're about 22?
Well, he's like Charlie Chaplin. Maybe he's a late bloomer.
We know why he's so angsty now. He probably hasn't got his hand away for 22 years. She's like, it's my father. So you worked out that it's my father who's building the bomb, which is going to blow up number 2. So number 6 is like, no, but okay. And so we get more setup. We get number 2 being visited by a member of the Records. And number 2 is giving him his duties. And it seems like an innocuous scene, but it comes back later on.
Yes, it does.
Because this show is an intelligent show. And then he's just sat having coffee with Annette Andre, and she's just gorgeous. She's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So they go off, I think, to visit the father to talk him out of blowing up number 2. And his father's just like, 9! We must blow them up. And then number 6, of course, is you kill number 2, and they'll take it out on the whole village.
Yeah, the reprisals are. I mean, it's almost like this is a French resistance. You can't do anything to the German high command because they'll take it out on the whole village, which is again a staple by this time, a staple of movies too. I mean, this was something that we had seen played out in different films since the end of World War II,
and it's with stakes as well. Because, the guy's old, no disrespect, but you're kind of like, well, if they take it out on him, he's old. He ain't got that long anyway.
Yeah, does he need to stick around?
Yeah. They take it out on number 6. Well, he's the hero, so he's going to prevail in some manner. But if they take it out on the village, then that is something different, because then what happens? But the interesting thing is number 6 decides to warn number 2. And it shows that even though he, of course, wants his individuality, he wants to exist out of the societal conforms of the village, he still believes in the establishment per se. So he warns that there won't be reprisals, because if there was reprisals, it would be anarchy.
Right, sure.
It would be chaos. And he's not a believer in anarchy and chaos. He is a believer of order.
But and also, what's interesting about this particular episode is I also think that number 6 has sympathy for a lot of the people that live in the village, and it's shown with the buying the sweets for the old woman, and the artist that paints his portrait and that he hangs out with the people in the old folks' home. That
shows
I think
respect for the cost show.
Yes, and the idea that these kinds of reprisals would affect those people the most. I mean, I think it's not an accident that we see him interacting with more of the elderly people of the village in this episode, and they bring up the idea of reprisals because they would be.
To me, this is where we play with the themes of empathy and apathy, because number 6 is clearly empathetic. And the watchmaker, he says that he's doing this not because he's an evil man or anything. He's doing this because he wants to snap the village out of their apathy.
Right.
So you've got somebody that wants to do an extreme course of action to awake the sheep. And you've got somebody who's empathetic that this would be more harmful to many than successful or productive, because they would just cause all manner of issues. Yeah. So you have apathy versus empathy here, and clearly, because of the way that the show's positioned, it's showing you that empathy is the true, it's the determining factor, not apathy. Empathy. And to snap people out of apathy, you don't have the right to do that.
No, absolutely. But it's also interesting that the setup of like this guy and his daughter, it brings up the question, like, why is he in the village? And when did he go there? And he talks about, we're gonna be here for the rest of our lives. And why would his daughter have to, if he's there because of some penance or because he was sequestered there because he was, I don't know, a scientist, an agent, whomever. Why was he made the clockmaker? How come his daughter was equally punished? You know, like I thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic to enter into this whole. It tells you more about the village and the structure, and because I do think here's the question: is his plot, was his plot made up anyway? Like the whole assassination plot, is that real, or is that just more BS? Because I read it as being real, or at least the watchmaker believes it's real, but it could all just be, you know, made up crap. Because when they introduce these characters, I mean, I always ask myself when I'm watching this, okay, nothing we've seen, they're always messing with him. So when we're introduced to these characters, are we as an audience supposed to look at a character like the watchmaker and go, this guy's genuine? And I believe that he is. I believe that in this particular episode, he's not some plant, he's not created, he's not some brainwashed dude. He is who he says he is. But then that brings up the question, okay, if he is, why is his daughter with him? How is that allowed? You know, and did his daughter do something? Is she it seems to me like she should be in swinging London with number 2, probably, you know, being the coat, either the coat check girl at his club or the girl that's running the bar or running the club with number 2. I mean, she belongs in swinging London, yet she's there with their father. Did she choose to go there to take care of him? And do they let her out?
They do mention in early episodes that there is sometimes you can get out. Sometimes you can get out of the village. Because we never see the consequence of people's actions in this.
Right.
We don't know. We don't know who ends up in the graveyard. I mean, I think they're never seen again. These people are never seen again.
No, it's a fascinating, I think one of the most fascinating things about the show is the idea of the village itself. And it's almost like in every episode, they sort of reinvent certain aspects of the village. However, whatever the story needs to have happen. And so the village remains very ambiguous throughout the whole series. They give you glimpses into it, but it's episodes like this that make I have questions. You know, I ask, because the relationships, well, we haven't got to it yet, but even the relationships between the number 2s is fascinating in this particular episode, because we don't always see necessarily a changeover of power. There's something interesting we find out about number 2, which we'll get to, and I find that interesting as well. So I know the village is supposed to be ambiguous. I mean, it is all things to all episodes, really. But I wonder, I can't help as a fan and a genre fan, when you think about these things, you want to know how the village works. Like, you know, why is the watchmaker there? And I think that's part of the fun of the show, is because the village is so ambiguous and they give you these different layers of things that you'll never have answers to it. And I think that's one of the appeals of The Prisoner in general, because the village is the Starship Enterprise of The Prisoner.
Oh, you know, absolutely.
And it is, it wouldn't be The Prisoner without the village. Just like you can't have original Star Trek, you can't have Star Trek The Next Generation without the Enterprise. It wouldn't be the same thing. You could have the characters, but it wouldn't be. And I think we saw that graphically illustrated in Picard. The funny thing about Picard is there's no real, the starship they had in that didn't add to the whole idea of it all.
I would argue First Contact.
Right.
Because when they brought in the Enterprise E, it had no personality.
Right.
The Constellation class has got buckets of personality. It's iconic. Enterprise D is iconic. Enterprise E is generic.
Yeah, I mean, the funny, like you said, it became generic Starfleet design. John Eves came up with. It looks cool, but you know, the funny thing about the Enterprise D, a lot of people don't like it compared to the Enterprise, from the original series. But the idea that
it's a galaxy class, the different classes.
It's a different class, but it also has the round shapes. When you're in space, there's a certain, it almost looks like a piece of art. The Enterprise D is like a sculpture in a way.
When we see the Enterprise C, though, it bridges the gap between the Constellation class and the Galaxy class.
Yes.
And the Enterprise C looks gorgeous.
Yep.
That is a gorgeous looking ship. And then you can see the evolution to the Enterprise D, but you can't see the evolution to E.
No.
There's no evolution. There's no organic evolution. It's just generic Starfleet ship NC-1701. But there's the village is the beating heart of the show.
Right.
It's almost the soul of the show. Because you're fighting this consistent battle with morality. So there is a soul to be had here. We don't know if the Watchmaker was there from day one.
Right. He might have been.
His path just never crossed. He looked insular. There was no reason for number 6 to go into the shop. Number 6 is insular to a degree. I mean, we do see he has these superficial interactions, but who's to say that these superficial interactions aren't selfish for him to have normalcy in his life? I've got to have the mundane because I've got to have the normal. I've got to get my exercise. I've got to socialize with a cup of coffee. I've got to be with people. We're humans.
He's trying to have a life. I mean, he's trying to, it's regimented as it is. I mean, he keeps himself sharp, but he is trying to, I mean, it might all be bullshit, but the people that are they're not automatons. So they're real people. So there's an element of, I mean, the painter is really painting, so I'm going to sit down with him. He is doing something. He's a real human being.
But you can't imagine that the conversation would be anything but superficial.
Right. Of course. Because he wouldn't believe anything anyway. At least if you're talking about with the guy, like playing chess is real because you're against an opponent. They talk about, the prisoner will beat him in 11 moves. That he's but at least chess has rules, and you can't lie when you're playing chess. So I think that's something that it keeps him, the idea that we have chess throughout the series, live people, giant chessboards, smaller chessboards, the whole show being brinksmanship and chess playing. But
we're all pawns, my dear.
Yes, they're all pawns, my dear. But that's why he plays chess, because it's real.
Yes.
I think it's not something that you can't fake it. You're either good at chess or you're not.
Chess is also a big theme throughout the whole series.
Absolutely.
Because it is a chess game. This whole thing is a chess game. And there are stakes. I prefer ribeye. So he goes to number 2 to warn him. Number 2 realizes he's on his way because this is all planned. It's all part of the plan, because he says to Pink Twink, he says that, number 6 is going to come here. He's going to warn me that there is a plot to assassinate number 2. Before he arrives, number 2 does a check. He says, camera 1, are you ready? Yep. Camera 2, you ready? Yep. Okay. Number 6 comes in. Oh, number 6, do come in. Do come in. My good man. Have a little superficial chat, and then number 6 says, I'm here to tell you about an assassination plot to kill me. Oh, we get a little bit of what? To kill me, to assassinate you, to kill. Oh, and then we get, you've been talking to the Watchmaker,
right.
Which, by the way, is ADR, very bad ADR, because he's saying something completely different and then just stops. So a line was removed and a completely different line ADR'd over on top. A lot of these little errors with this episode, but never mind. And so he dismisses him. It's fine. He's a jammer. He's in jammer. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So, number 6 is like, fine. You know, you won't be laughing when you get blown up. Storms out, walks out. You know, to him, he's done what he can. Then we have the pair of them chatting away. The pair of them being number 6 and Annette Andre. They go back to the watchmaker's shop. They realize that he's going to pack the explosives into the village's seal, like a big mayoral seal. He's created his own version of it, and he's packed it full of plastic explosives.
Yeah.
He's going to use the remote detonator to explode it. And Darren Nesbitt is going to go everywhere. At least, oh my Jesus Lord, look at that. Julius, I will get to you shortly, sir. My God, thank you so much. Everything up until now we think is against Darren Nesbitt's number 2. We are 2/3 over the episode, and the twist hasn't been revealed yet.
No, and it is a really good twist, I have to say.
But 2/3 played out, and then the twist comes, and it's just like, God damn. I remember watching this first time, and when number 6 goes back to number 2, when he's got all the pieces of the puzzle, he knows where the explosives are going to go. He knows how it's going to be done. You going? I'll pass it to you, sir.
Well, he goes back to see number 2, and it's not the number 2 that we've been dealing with the whole episode. It's some dude we've never seen before, a new number 2, an older number 2, a number 2 that actually says he's been on leave for a while. He's been elsewhere for a while, and there's been other number 2s in the interim that have been holding down the fort for him. And
so he's been at the village before.
He's been at the village before, and he's been gone, and he's come back. And I think what's really interesting watching this episode again is I feel that we as the viewers, the audience, are, you know, because you're following this sort of rather Byzantine plot, and then this throws you for a loop, totally unexpected. And it's interesting because number 6 feels, I think, up to this point that, well, they're not really fucking with me now. I'm being involved in something else. But then when he walks in and sees, then it becomes the prisoner. Then it becomes, oh, I am being messed with. Yeah. So oh, this is all about me. You know, there's something's going on here, and I think it's a really great moment. And I really,
it's not about him. It's about his character.
Right.
So they're not trying to get number 6. They're not trying to do number 6. They're not trying to trick number 6. They're not trying to get him to reveal anything. What they need number 6 for is his integrity. Because if number 6 says something's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right.
But if you can discredit number 6, it's just a joke.
Yeah, and it's a great moment, and it's totally unexpected. And I really think and then it goes on, you know, it continues on, and you even see more number 2s, you know.
Yes, he shows the footage of warning. Oh, number 6, I've heard that you've been warning multiple number 2s about this. No, I haven't. No, look, I've got video footage. Shows the video footage. They've taken that conversation, they've edited it, they've doctored it. Again, a modern thing to do. See clips out of context.
Deep fakes.
Deep fakes is another. I was thinking of that earlier as well. But we see like a Leo McKern-esque number 2.
Right. Yeah.
And then we see another female number 2.
And what's
as
great is
well.
we haven't seen any of these people before.
No, they literally make bang.
And everything that it really, for you as the audience, you're going, wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that all the number twos that we've seen up to this point are just filling in for this dude? And it's really interesting. I mean, it again, from a viewing standpoint, it really makes you think. Like suddenly you start rolling back in your mind, like, wait a minute, and I'm wondering, has the show taken a total? Is this the number two that's going to be with us for the rest of the series? What's going on? But then you find out things about him soon after.
Well, yeah, he's about to retire.
He's about to retire.
Come back to retire, to hand over to the new number two, who's going to be Darren Nesbitt, and he's come back to do the ceremony, which is the big seal, which is packed full of plastic explosives. So, because number 6 does have integrity, number 2 questions when he leaves whether or not he's been fucked with. So who does he call upon? Calls upon the person who had the very innocuous conversation earlier in the episode from Records. Records, do you have a record of number 6 talking to number 2? No, sir. How can you say no? You don't even work in that department. I'm sending you to go and check it out. And you just immediately say, no, it doesn't exist. And then he's just like, shit, number 6 is right. They're going to kill me.
Well, there's that great exchange where the guy from Records he says, I don't know quite how he puts it. He says something that's basically, it's like in a mob movie, where somebody's going to get hit they just kind of nod. And both sides know what's going to happen.
Well, he says, can you answer this? And he says, I can't give you an answer.
That's it. I can't give you an answer. And he's just kind of
like,
standing, but that is the answer.
Yes.
It is the answer. And I did love that kind of, I love that actor too, that he's kind of got this smirk on his face.
Oh yeah. There's something quite sinister about him.
Yes. And it's like, well, I'm here to tell you, I've told you what I need to tell you. It's up to you now. You figure it out.
Well, this is where we get a consistent error, which has been going through the show as well. Number 1 has been contacting number 2 throughout the course of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But the number 1 phone wasn't there. So they had to use just a generic yellow phone on a big curved red number 1 mobile. No. Where was it? Props. Where was it? So we have the ceremony begin, which is actually filmed in Port Marion, because a lot of this is done on the sound stage.
Yep.
But this is actually done in Port Marion. The people are walking through with signs of the old number 2 face and the new number 2 face. And so they're getting there for the ceremony to begin. Darren Nesbitt's huge glasses are actually a transceiver as well and radio. So he's in contact with his pink friend. And he's just like, is everything ready? His mate's like, dude, it's fine. Nothing to worry about. Everything's ready. Number 6 is there with number 3050. And they're looking around to try and find the watchmaker. And they spot him in the bell tower. So we do have some external shots. We do have a lot of soundstage shots in this episode. And then I think we get one of the most unfortunate sequences, because they clearly didn't have Annette Andre in Port Marion and Patrick McGoon wasn't there. Now, Patrick McGoon's double is brilliant. He's nigh on perfect. Unfortunately, the person who they got to double as Annette Andre was about twice the size of her.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and probably about 20 years older. And it's just like, wait, who's this frumpy woman running with number 6, pretending to be Annette Andre? I was like, I am mad for you, Annette. I am shaking my fist. So he gets into the clock tower. The guy's 80 something, for goodness sake. They use some old footage of number 6 going around the village as well.
Yeah, we see that a lot, like from the first episode when he first goes up in the clock tower. There's
and then he gets the transceiver. Number 2 is giving a speech, thinking he's going to get blown up at any minute. So he's actually taking as much time as he can because he thinks this is it. So he's just like, "Hi, if I seem emotional, it's because this is a very emotional time. I feel blah 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 da 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 da," and he's just waffling on. And he's sort of realizing, I'm coming kind of to the end of anything I need to say here. So they like swap the seal onto Darren Nesbitt. And Darren Nesbitt's just like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Dude, what's going on?" So his pink friend goes and Mark Eden goes and is waiting for McGowan out at the clock tower. Now, when Mark Eden was interviewed, he said, "When I did this episode of The Prisoner, I was in good shape." He said, I was a fit guy. You know, I looked after myself, kept in good physical shape, liked to do my own stunts. You know, I was one of those guys. He said, "McGowan beat the shit out of me." He said, "This guy was crazy. He was like, he was a madman." He said he had me on the ground at one point and he's got his hands to my throat and he's throttling the life out of me. And it's just like, I couldn't get him off. The guy was, he said there was an insanity in his eyes. And he's like, and then he stopped. And it's just like, bloody hell. So yeah, McGowan's going through some troubles at the moment. So they have a fight. Number 6 wins. He prevents the transceiver from getting flicked. Darren Nesbitt is rushing through his speech. Thank you very much for the seal of approval. I do this with the village and I take this because he wants to get this off as soon as possible because he's wearing the plastic explosives. It's going to go boom. And then number 6 arrives, passes the transceiver to the old number 2 and says, "This is your ticket out of here." And he's like, "Yeah, but it's still going to get me. So I don't care. It's like, as long as they get you out there and not in the village."
Yeah. No reprisals. We're safe.
But this is your ticket out. So he goes to leave. Darren Nesbitt tries to stop him and he puts his finger on the switch and Nesbitt's just like, I can't do anything. And he's just like, the little smirk on number 2's face is like, so number 6 grabs the other number 2's hand. "Oh, congratulations. Oh, I'm sure you'll love being number 2. Giving the other number 2 time to get into the helicopter and fly away, get away from it all. And then the funny thing is, when number 2, when he spoke to number 1 last, he was just like, "Stake my life on it."
Right.
"This will go off without a hitch. Stake my life on it." Well, whoops. So, never seen again. Maybe never seen again. Number 2. But number 6 gets a little win. Anything you want to put onto the end of that?
No, I mean, I think that's great. And it was really nice to see the our number 2, our swinging 60s London number 2, who seemed to be in such control. The tables are turned the same way. I mean, in any other episode, it would have been number 6 in that position, and it was great to see a total role reversal. And I love the way he plays it too, because the whole time he's kind of had this bemused grin on his face, but not in that last scene. He doesn't.
Oh, no.
And I really love the way it's played. And it could have been a lot more bombastic, but it's, believe it or not, for the prisoner, it's even a little, it's subtle. I like the way it was played. I like the the end of that, the conclusion of that episode. And I thought it was really well done.
I'm a believer in less is more.
Yeah.
I don't believe that bigger explosions, more explosions, bigger battles, more lightsabers, more Skywalkers and Palpatines. I don't believe any of that is worth a grain of salt unless you have the story and the characters and everything to back it up. And although this is a mess of a put together episode.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, you can see it. Either editorial is not up to snuff. They use a lot of stock footage, but I mean, I understand that they're in the middle of production of a very expensive show, so they have to figure out ways to cut corners.
But the story is fantastic. It's played brilliantly by everyone, and these little one-upmanship endings I love.
I do too.
It's nod and a wink. Sometimes a nod and a wink is the kind of endings that you truly want.
Absolutely.
The bad guy doesn't always have to die on screen. The good guy doesn't always have to go through a 10-story building explosion-wise to get to them. Sometimes you just need to foil a plot. But this is the kind of television that we used to get, and it ran for decades. This sort of television. Next Generation was very rarely action oriented.
It even like the James Bond movie For Your Eyes Only, when it ends with General Gogol arriving to pick up the decoder, and Bond says, "You don't have it, General, and we don't have it." That's détente.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it ends, and I always liked that. I always thought that was, and this kind of ends that way as well, and I think it's a very appropriate ending.
Yeah, and great little episode. Lots of little problems, but it's amazing how the problems just fall to one side when you have something that is crafted so brilliantly from a story perspective.
Mm-hmm.
In a hypercritical world, even now we're hypercritical. We tear things apart. We have the facility to do it. We have the technology to do it. We have the time to do it. But even with that, you can take an episode that from an editorial perspective is pretty poor. From a directorial perspective is pretty much all over the place because of the editorial.
Yeah.
And you can dismiss it. Mistakes, but you can kind of push it to one side because the body of the episode was so strong, the story was so strong, the performances were so strong. That was the determining element that pushed this episode through.
But it had to have been this episode. I mean, for the director, it had to have been frustrating because you had an over-reliance on stock footage.
Yeah.
You were in Port Marion, then you weren't in Port Marion. You're stage bound. You couldn't get your actors back. It had to have been incredibly frustrating to make this episode.
I mean, they even used some arrival footage.
Yeah, that like at the beginning when he runs up the clock tower, you see that projected in the in his morning routine. Well, he goes up to the top.
When they're watching him walk around the village, you see a shot and he's in all black. He's in his black suit.
Yeah.
So and little things like that. But again, these are things that you can pass on because it's the strength of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to the Super Chats and the questions. Chat. We're now opening it up to yourself. When we get through these, forgive me, but we'll wrap it up. And I'll try and salvage as much voice as I can. But it's good that it's getting a workout. Last couple of days, I did a nearly 4-hour stream yesterday. So, if we can get this near the 2-hour mark, that'd be great. Gary Walker with a £1.50 phallic unicorn. Gary, thank you very much indeed. And Shane O'Reilly with a €1.50 phallic unicorn. Thank you very much indeed. And then Shane, because I play Fall Guys as well, with a €1.50 hot dog. Hot dog. Still on. Now I can turn off. Deckard, the couch guy, with a 20 Norwegian kroner. Who are you? Who is number one? You are number one.
All of you.
Your dark side, your mirror image. That's news number one, mate. Mick Wynn with a £5 super chat. George Markstein, the script editor, appeared in the episode Many Happy Returns, which we did before I got ill.
Mhm.
Yes. When he returned, he meandered back down the corridor without the purpose necessarily of the resignation, and then he opened the doors quite gently compared to the thundercrack smashing them open before. Yes, and George Markstein was behind the desk. I think it was about halfway through the series that McGowan and him parted ways. I could no longer function together. But it was a lovely bit of continuity there. Yeah, it's a really nice bit of continuity. Deckard the couch guy with 50 Norwegian kroner again. Idea: make a fan service of the intro to The Prisoner with Az as number 6 and the rest of Friday Night Tights as number 2. You've given me an idea, but I think it's only fair that we'll have a play with Robert and myself. But I think I might have a word with and throw a few shekels to Perry Chan and get him to put something special together for me.
You know what? I would like to see Gary Beekler as number 2.
Ooh,
just sitting in the chair with the umbrella, or I mean, it would be really funny because I'm number 2 in our painting and you're number 6. So it would be interesting to see variations on those themes with everybody else's number 2, and you're confronting you confront the different number 2s.
Comics division turns around and says, hey.
I mean, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a word with Perry. He's
would that mean Gary is Leo McKern? And then he has to shave to be
I think we could have Gary as I'm thinking of oh my goodness, is Wincliffe.
Okay. Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers can be this number 2.
yeah.
With the glasses. I think it'd be good.
Yes. Odin would make a great Leo McKern.
Oh yeah.
Number 2. And Batwoman Reeing would as well. That picture, the Batwoman picture. What are they trying to do? They're not doing themselves any favors, are they?
Yeah, I don't know.
It looked like my shitty niece's cosplay.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I always hold off. Comments on costumes until you see them on screen, because see them properly lit, see them all in action.
Well, that's not the point of the show anyway. So, Kiri with a £1 Fiddy phallic unicorn. Thank you, Kiri. Jay Fraser with a £10 super chat. Welcome back as an RMB. The Prisoner Puzzle with Patrick McGowan is a rare 1977 interview on YouTube that I advise you save and watch after Fallout before it's taken down again. Be seeing you, gents.
Ooh.
Oh, The Prisoner Puzzle. I may have seen this. Have you seen the other one yet? Oh, by the way, I think it's yesterday. It might even be today, but I think it was yesterday. Was the 53rd anniversary of the arrival.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
53 years. It's either yesterday or today. Might even be today, but I think it's yesterday, maybe even Monday. But it was the last couple of days. Was the by the way, just
Prisoner Puzzle with Patrick McGowan is still here.
just going to talk shop quickly with Robert.
Yes.
I'm watching Enterprise again.
Oh, you're okay.
Gone through TNG, and I'm just nearly a season deep in Enterprise.
Okay.
Which is much more enjoyable to watch this time around, maybe because it feels like Star Trek comparative to, even though it's slightly different from Star Trek, if you get my drift.
Yes. I also think that I've found that when you're slightly when you're removed, like when the show's first on, you're judging it differently than going back and watching it. But so are you enjoying it?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it's like about amazing. I think there's a lot of typical.
That's the problem.
But there's I actually really enjoy now the prequel element to it. I like the lack of technology in this one because it relies more on the personality. But we're gonna soon come to the point where I get very frustrated because the show over relies on Trip and Paul, and it completely neglects Mayweather and the interpreter and Malcolm.
Hoshi and Malcolm.
Hoshi and Malcolm Reed, which is highly annoying because when Reed and Tucker are stuck in the Shuttle pod together, those actors had incredible chemistry.
Yeah, no, they did, and
they never put them together again.
No, and that I think that was I think the problem with a lot of these Star Trek shows is there's generic Star Trek stories that ended up being told and variations on themes, and the one thing that Enterprise, I think it had an over reliance on going back and trying to tell typical Star Trek stories as like you talked about, the lack of technology and leaning into. I think they should have made much more of learning about the galaxy and the geopolitical situation of the Vulcans and the Andorians. When they did it, that was interesting.
I really enjoyed the Vulcan relationship with the humans. That to me needed to be explored much more.
Absolutely.
Because whenever that came on, that stuff was brilliant.
Well, in the fourth season, you've got that 3-episode Vulcan arc, The Forge, and that's Kashara, and those were really great episodes.
It was such a heartbreak because I've totally forgotten, because the last time I watched Enterprise, and I really liked crewman Elizabeth Cutler, and I just recalled, I was like, I know she's only in like 3 episodes, which is so annoying because she's really good. So I looked up the actress, and it's because she died.
Yeah.
I know there were plans to potentially actually bring her on as another member of the cast.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember her character was great, and her relationship with the Doctor, and she was so pretty as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so heartbreaking. Just was it heart arrhythmia, and so frustrating. But yeah, to me, that show would have worked much better if you were dealing with the political aspect of the Vulcan and the humans in space.
Well, originally, the first season, they were it was all going to be set on Earth, and they weren't going to launch the NX-01 until the end of the season. It was going to be much more like The Right Stuff and a lot more Vulcan, the political situation on Earth and dealing with. But the network, I mean, Enterprise was messed around with more by the network than any of the previous Berman era Star Trek shows, which was sort of unfortunate. My favorite story that they told us when we were doing the documentaries is that, this is true, by the way, they had asked Brannon Braga and Rick Berman, they said, well, can't we have like a new band? You've got like they were thinking about 10 Forward, but you've got a bar, you've got a mess hall. Can we have a new band, like a boy band or something, play every week on the show? And that was something the network really wanted them to do, is have a band, like, I don't know, One Direction show up. Yeah, like, I mean, it was just, what a ridiculous notion.
This is not Smallville.
No.
This is not the cafe. It's just the Starship fucking Enterprise.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And I love the Andorians.
And Shran, I mean, the Andorians are the best. That was, I think, the best of all the races that are fleshed out in Enterprise. The Andorians were their best.
Who's
addition.
who's the
Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey, so good. I mean, he was Weyoun in Deep Space Nine,
yes.
and actually played a
Ferengi.
Yeah, but he's so good in those roles. I mean, he was so good as Weyoun, and he's so good as Shran.
Yes. Whenever he appeared, my heart lifts. Whenever the Andorians appeared, I love the monastery episode. I think it's great.
Great.
That's the God damn. Well, I mean, Star Trek episodes, because it was like, you think the good guys, the Vulcans and the humans. You think that's the case, and the Andorians are the naughty, nasty bad guys coming in, kicking up a tantrum, and you're just like, "Oh, come on, beat them up and get them out of there." And then you realize it's actually the Vulcans.
Well, I mean, I also think even Enterprise, when you watch modern Star Trek now, is they're not really interested in making a Star Trek that's connected to the previous shows. They're doing their own thing, and their own thing is just weak sauce. You know, they're not
Star Trek.
It's not Star Trek, and they've
said it's not about Star Trek anymore. It's
no,
about
and they're
using the platform,
bringing their own agendas in, and I think that's the real. Even Enterprise, there was. We're getting off topic, but even Enterprise, even Enterprise is still connected. I mean, the whole Berman era of Star Trek started with Gene Roddenberry himself. So even Enterprise, as far away removed from Enterprise as it was from TNG, it still has its roots. Berman was still trying to keep the last vestiges of Roddenberry's optimism alive, and he was still trying to stay within what they had done.
Why did his films fuck up so badly then with the Next Gen? Nemesis, I think, is a disgrace.
Yeah, I think, you know what the problem is? I think that they never treated they've never treated any of the Star Trek movies, I think, other than even the motion picture and Star Trek 2, as they were always like, okay, we'll hire Leonard Nimoy to direct. It was always done in-house. Like, you never had some great screenwriter like a Steve Zalian come in and write a great Star Trek script. The Berman, it was always insular, and it was always kept in the family because, look, they had their production people already, so it didn't make sense to go outside of that. Yeah, we'll have Jonathan Frakes come in and direct First Contact. Yeah, we'll have Ron and Brandon write the script and all that. And I think that was a mistake, because what they did was, I mean, like First Contact was just, they'd already covered all that. The Borg had been already covered, and then you had all these disparate elements. Yeah, we'll bring in Zefram Cochrane from Metamorphosis, which didn't really work. The Borg plan didn't really work, and none of it felt. I think that the Star Trek franchise is a case study in how not to jump between television and movies, because none of the movies really, other than Star Trek the Motion Picture, I mean, Star Trek 2 is good, but Star Trek 2 is clearly made on the cheap, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I mean, Star Trek the Motion Picture, what I love about Star Trek the Motion Picture is that it feels like a movie, especially if you compare it to the original series. It's this big, giant.
And it's a risk.
It is a risk.
I mean, I personally love the motion picture because
it's my favorite Star Trek movie.
You'll never
it's not the best,
ever
have
a film. No, but you'll never have a film made like that again.
No.
Which is such a shame, because to me, the motion picture is more Kubrick than Star Wars. You know?
No, it is
2001 than it is Star Wars. It's playing with concepts and your mind, and nowadays it's so superficial. It's laser beams and explosions.
Yeah, no, it's
revenge time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think about movies like Arrival, Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. You could have made Arrival as a Star Trek movie. You know, like, these aliens are going to come to wherever world, and we have to figure out how are we going to talk to them.
Yeah, how are we going to communicate? Yeah.
And that would have been you could have made that as a Star Trek movie if you wanted to.
But we kind of have that with Hoshi and Enterprise.
Right. You do, but I mean, you could have made it a much bigger story and the idea of time and you know, the characters are all displaced in time as they're trying to learn these things, and they're looking into their. But I think that's the real problem, is that there is a, especially now in modern Star Trek, there is a prejudice. People think they're slumming. Rick Berman thought he was slumming when he was producing Star Trek, even beginning with Next Generation. He was given this job. He was kind of thrown a lifeline, and he took it over. But right now we have Star Trek that is made by people that don't see. Star Trek should be seen as Shakespeare. You should be approaching it as this sacrosanct, almost holy thing.
Oh yeah.
And that you're but now it's just this. People are like, oh, it's cheesy. People like it. It's people think Star Trek is Galaxy Quest. You look at the way Galaxy Quest. Yeah, but I mean, it's not taken seriously, and everybody who makes Star Trek now thinks we're going to make it better. We're going to take that little campy that we're going to make it better. And these are people that have never watched Deep Space Nine.
This goes back to what we were discussing earlier with the Zucker brothers. The Zucker brothers love what they lampooned.
Yes.
And so everything felt real. Nothing felt as if it was being mocked. The structure was all there. Abrahams comes in and he takes the superficial out of the characters and calls it a character. And so you have this surface level bouncing around the screen, and it's just like, have you actually sat down and watched a TOS episode? Have you actually seen Kirk in action? Have you seen how he captained? Have you actually seen how he dealt with situations, his negotiation? He was a brilliant captain. But no, it's just like, oh yeah, but we just remember him kissing her and remember him flying around the place, and oh, that's his character now. It's just like,
but you know what? Those are people that have it. That's the pop culture memory. That's the of the show. It isn't the reality of the show at all. And it's really interesting. I've been talking about this, but there's a screenwriter named Eric Jedrinson, who was a writer, producer, a supervising producer of HBO's Band of Brothers, the World War II miniseries. He was courted by the heads of Paramount. He didn't want any interest. He had no interest in Star Trek. He had no interest in science fiction. They came to him to write a Star Trek movie after Enterprise went off the air. And he'd never seen Star Trek. So he immersed himself in Star Trek, and he wrote a script called Star Trek: The Beginning that takes place about 8 years after the end of Enterprise. And it was about the beginning of the Romulan War. It's a great script. It's a great script. And it has canonical fealty to everything. And the reason it didn't get made was Donald DeLine, who ran Paramount, the production division of Paramount, was replaced. So when a regime leaves, all of the projects die on the vine. I think that if I was in charge right now, I would go to Paramount and say, let's make this script. And we've never looked at the Romulan War. It's still a prequel show, but we'll give it canonical fealty to the end of Enterprise, to the Berman era of Trek, which is really the Roddenberry era of Trek as well. And it's the first of a trilogy, and you already own the script. The script is great. But because the people at Secret Hideout or whatever, Bad Robot, control Star Trek, that'll never happen. But that's a script that Paramount owns right now, that was written, that has to deal with the Romulan War, and it's a really, really good script. It introduces brand new characters, and it's great.
Don't put it anywhere close to Kurtzman.
But anyway,
don't put it anywhere near Kurtzman, for fuck's sake. Nowhere close. Just imagine this. Imagine All Good Things turned into a film.
Yeah, well, that should have been Generations instead.
Yes. That should have been Generations.
I mean, if you had if All Good Things looked like Generations with the cinematography, and that movie would have made so much money. It would have made so much money.
You could have fleshed out just a couple little bits, because obviously you had your restrictive hour and a half for TV.
Yeah.
So you could have given yourself an extra half hour to just flesh out a couple of extra bits. That is what Next Gen was about. Oh, this is why I have my 3 Picard rule. Next Gen Picard, movie Picard. Because they're, to me, in completely different universes.
Yeah.
In my eyes, there's currently an Admiral Picard who is now at Starfleet teaching the next generation of students.
or being an archaeologist somewhere,
Oh,
or yeah. Well, that's the
maybe rutting Vash all day.
Yeah. And I think one of the problems with this modern crop of Star Trek shows is that they keep messing around with established lore, because Discovery's a prequel. Now they're going to do the Captain Pike show, and they're messing around with established continuity, and they're bringing this. It's like it's like trying to apply our world today onto the way Star Trek was in 1966. That's basically what they're doing. And they're going back and they're changing Star Trek, the 66 Star Trek, into something else.
Yes.
And calling it, well, that's what it is. Like Spock has a learning disability because that's what we do today. No, he doesn't.
Well,
none of the people.
Quite interesting, because the people that write him are fucking retarded.
Well, I mean, the entire crews that we've seen in modern Star Trek, they're all incompetent. None of them would ever be. Tilly would not be on a starship. Stamets would not be on a starship. I mean, none of these characters act like Star Trek characters, but they act like characters that are on shows today.
They act like television actors. I mean, in the crew, though.
Right.
They've been paid to stay on a starship and pretend they know what the fuck they're talking about, and they ain't got a clue.
Well, what's really interesting to me is, like, if you watch Lower Decks is the ultimate example of, like, obviously Mike McMahon, the showrunner, loves Star Trek, but it's the ultimate example of turning Star Trek, everything about Star Trek, we all laugh at it. The Mugatu, remember that episode? Ha ha ha. And that's
the
all lower.
These aren't funny.
No, and all the it's a Star Trek send up. Now, I thought it would have been really interesting to do an actual animated Star Trek show, but what this is they've transposed, whether it's Rick and Morty or take any number of animated shows and turned it in. And some people are like, oh, I really like Lower Decks because the storylines or whatever. And ooh, look, there's a Vulcan shuttle from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I'm like, all of that is so distracting because it's all just it compensates for not coming up with a new form. If you wanted to do a Star Trek animated show, a modern day Star Trek animated show, why use someone else's form like Rick and Morty? Why not create a new form?
It's got no ideas.
That is unique to Star Trek. Well, yeah.
Because they got the wrong people running the show. And to me, Lower Decks comes across as mockery, not satire.
Right.
Which is, again, completely different from the Zucker Brothers, which doesn't come across as mockery. It comes across that you love the genres that you're satirizing. This comes across as, isn't this stupid?
Well, I mean,
I said Deanna Troy. Remember Deanna Troy? Fuck off. That's not funny.
Well, I hate the opening credit sequence when they show the Cerritos running away from the Romulans engaging the Borg. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea that if you're going to do a show like this, like I've always said, a second contact show, this is not a bad thing. If once the Enterprise rolls up and opens up relations with a new species, the idea that when you're on second contact, imagine all of the cultural differences that you have. Second contact missions could inherently be funny if you wanted to play them that way, because how do you understand what new civilizations want?
How can you do that when she's great at everything, but she's not, and he's a fool?
Yeah, I can't stand all that. I can't. I'm like, I don't. That's not what Star Trek is.
And that is modern day entertainment all around. Now we've got to role reverse, and we've got to belittle, right? Because we're trying to balance the books. You're not balancing the books. You're just making shit.
Yeah,
and alienating audiences, and you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't know your source material. You've got to have somebody that truly like. I personally would throw all the money at Simon Pegg and say, Simon, get a crew of people together, write something, bring it to me. Let's see what you got. Pick a time.
You did. Yeah, I mean, I think what you need, though, even beyond Simon Pegg, is I think you need somebody. I keep going back to what Ryan Coogler did with the Rocky franchise and Creed. You know, he loved Creed. He made something that showed canonical fealty to the franchise, gave us a new character, and also gave us a beautifully written Rocky Balboa himself. It was Stallone. And what we need somebody that none of the people that make Star Trek now take Star Trek seriously as a thing, like as a living, breathing universe that has existed for a long time. They're all people that are slightly removed from it. They're the cool kids that have been given the keys to this thing that was always kind of slightly nerdy, and now they're going to make it their way. And so they're not making it the way that it should be made, but they're making it the way that they want it to be. So it's either too cool for school, or try to be, even though it's not, or it's, look at, I'm the nerdy guy that I'm making Star Trek, and I'm going to show you how much fun it is. You know what it is? It's like watching Lower Decks is like going to a Star Trek convention. It's not like watching real Star Trek. It's like the conversations and what people think. It's like watching cosplay by people that aren't actually making Star Trek, but like they're playing Star Trek at a convention.
It's like the people who are dressed up in bad cosplay outfits that think they're the dog's bollocks. But you're looking at them and go, dude, you're a 500-pound fucking Geordie LaForge. You know, it doesn't work. It does in your head, and you think you're great, but it doesn't work for the rest of the masses.
Yeah, it's
it just breaks my heart. Don't go breaking my heart, but you did. Mick Wynn with a £2 super chat. RMB, did you make a profit on Free Enterprise?
No, I've never made one dime off that movie.
Oh.
I got paid while I was making it. You know, we were trying to build a company, so we were paid a salary. I was paid for the screenplay, because you have to pay, and I was paid a weekly salary to make it, but beyond that, no. I mean, and my desire, like, I want to do a new version in 4K is only because if I only ever make one movie in my life, I'd like to have the definitive version of it be out there, and it would be nice to be able to have that. But no, I mean, yeah, never. But it was cool. I got to make a movie and produce a soundtrack album. So there you go.
With Bill.
With Bill. Yeah, I mean, my childhood, I mean, it was the whole experience, by the way, was priceless. I could never put a price on it. And for me, who wanted to make a movies my whole life, and loved Star Trek, have my directorial writing and directing debut be about my childhood idol was, you know, and one of the reasons people are like, oh, it's too bad your career didn't. I mean, I'm still trying to make stuff. You know, I'm still making things. I mean, I have a movie that I was associate produced, a documentary that's going to drop soon. And then another movie I produced and edited is going to start its festival run in February. So I'm still in the game. Still in the game, and working on this Netflix show that'll drop out in March. So I'm still making things. But yeah.
I just got to respond to this, Richard. Richard, I'm not saying that you can't dress up. What I'm saying is you can do what you want for your personal self, and it can be great in your head. But if you're doing something for the masses, no, you don't want the 500-pound Geordie LaForge. You want the LeVar Burton Geordie LaForge. There's a big difference between the two. You don't want the fake cosplay guy in the show. You want LeVar Burton in the show, who knows the character, who played it. Yeah, Russ Who with a $3 super sticker of fist bump. Holding out for Hero Girl with a €2 super chat. Do you know Sledgehammer? I wanna be Sledgehammer. Oh, why don't you call my name? Wow. Okay, yeah, Peter Gary. Yeah. If that's the one you mean, or if you mean there is an episode called Sledgehammer. I know, that's the episode I Mick Win again with a £2 suture. As love your content better than MSM. Oh, mainstream media / TV. TV. Oh, thank you, Mick. Defund the BBC. Absolutely, I am. I am no longer paying them license fee. I'm on a register to say not paying you, not watching you. And they're like, okay, we'll check in 2 years to see if you change your mind. 2 years, it will be decriminalized. So who cares? Julius Goodwin with a $100 super chat.
Julius is the man.
Better. Yeah, Julius, thank you so much, sir. Physically, I'm feeling better than the voice sounds. I'm actually going to go to the gym on Friday, but we're going to have a very light session. We're just gonna get moving and getting a little bit of a sweat on, see how we feel. So baby steps. But yeah, the voice, I need to do these streams because I need to get the vocal cords firing again. So it might take a couple of weeks until the voice gets back to normality, but some people say me sounding like I smoke 50 Rothmans a day is quite nice. Larry with a $2 super sticker of a thumbs up. Thank you, Larry. Shayna Riley with a €2 super chat. Friday, 29th of September, 1967 was Arrival. So it was yesterday, was the 53rd anniversary of Arrival. Hot diggity damn. Brian Lewandowski with a $5 super chat. Hey, Lars and RMB. Loved Enterprise. Last good trek and just finished The Prisoner. The last episode was nonsensical and wondered your thoughts. Well, we're going to do it.
We're going to get there.
We're going to do it, and we're going to try what we... I have no idea how that is going to come out, but we'll see. According to Christy, with a $1 super sticker of a poop emote. Yeah. There's a lot of Star Trek poop out right now, unfortunately. And then Mick Wynn with a £5 super chat. I was 10-year-old kid when my older sister took me to see Star Trek the Motion Picture. Loved it, but loved Khan. Wrath of Khan was great. Completely different. And a film that you can have, more action-based Star Trek, but at the same time, Kirk and Ricardo Montalban never do a scene together.
They never meet. They just talk to each other across the view screen.
It's so good. So good. I watched Star Trek 6 recently. It was beautiful. I loved it. I love Star Trek 6.
Don't wait for the translation. Answer me now.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, I just love how broken they all are at the start of 6. The Klingons and Kirk.
Oh, it's great.
Let them die.
Great.
Let them die.
They're animals, Jim. They're dying.
Let them die. It's just, good God, it's amazing. 6 was such a good way to send them off.
It was.
Topical as well. Mick wait. Drake is 6 with a $5 super chat. When Enterprise first aired, I gave it a C+. After Star Trek diarrhea and Star Trek pucard elder abuse, now it's grade A Star Trek. Yeah, it's amazing how much Enterprise feels like true Star Trek after we've had this dross.
Yeah. No, and also, I mean, the thing about Picard is, think about it. They killed Picard.
Yeah.
Captain Picard's gone.
He's dead, yeah.
All you have is an android, as if that's going to be like, again, one of the dumbest, in terms of science fiction, one of the dumbest decisions ever in the history of televised science fiction is to give someone a robot body, an android body, which could live forever, but make it look exactly the same as the body you were in. You're a 95-year-old man. I mean, you go back to Star Trek all the way back to the first season. What are little girls made of? And Roger Corby, when he makes android bodies, the whole point is to make an android body where you're looking great, you're looking young. And if they were really cool, like if they really wanted to do something, they have Patrick Stewart come in. They literally replace him with an actor who's, say, 30 years old. You know, and he's the android.
But he
Picard.
was shedding his white privilege. That's what he was shedding, his white privilege, and now he's an android victim. He can be repressed. He's part of a repressed group now, and that's what that's all that California wants, is to be a victim. That's all that they want. They have every opportunity afforded to them. They get jobs given to them that they should never have. But they're the victims.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting is our culture here. There is more acceptance and there is more opportunity than there has ever been, and yet we've now, especially over the last 5 years, created this idea, this victim narrative, when things were better than they ever were.
Yeah,
and the same is true of humanity. If you look at any actuarial tables, less war, less famine, less pestilence, you know, humanity really. Now, is that saying that everything is perfect? No. Are there things that need to be improved? Of course. But all of the idea that there is less victimhood in human civilization now, go back 500 years. Let's see where we were at. And it's such a weird idea now that has dominated our culture. And I think, you know, we're, at least in my lifetime, we're going to be paying for it. I thought we would be going to the stars, man. I thought we'd be beginning a new era of human enlightenment. And no, I think we've been pulled back in time at least 50 years.
Yeah. And there's the fault is everywhere. It's fault with infrastructure. It's the fault with the party system. It's the fault with mainstream media. It's the fault with entertainment. There's fault everywhere. To be had. It's not a singular problem. It's been a compound, because life is good. Liberties have been taken. Liberties have been abused, and now we're in paranoia mode. Yeah,
it's weird. I mean,
we've created a society of paranoia and fear.
Well, you know, it's like we go back. We always have these conversations and we talk about these episodes. Everything that I think that the prisoner was warning us against. I mean, by showing these things, just like Stanley Kubrick movies, people always talk about that he was misanthropic, or what Stanley Kubrick loved humanity, loved the folly of man. And I think in all of his work, he was saying, let's not do this. Let's not be this way. You know, we don't want to be like in Dr. Strangelove, or we don't want to be like in
oh, good grief. Yeah, if you
in Barry Lyndon. Yeah. Don't be Barry Lyndon. Don't be Redmond Barry. You know, don't do that. And that's why he told these stories about human folly, and he was hoping the audience would realize that this is not the way we should be, and let's be better. And I feel like nowadays we have all of this technology and we have all of this communication. We can do so much now, and we're not doing it. We're now sort of sliding back into this idea that everybody's going to be a victim. Everybody needs a safe space. Everybody, like, wait a minute. No. We're at the place where we're not supposed to go hide. You know, we're supposed to go be bold, and we're supposed to unshackle ourselves and go do great things with all of this great modern technology, because we have so much opportunity now. And the only people that aren't getting their opportunities are those that choose not to take them.
Yes.
And if you would like to choose to, rather, if you want to concentrate on your victim narrative, and if you're now it's like, let's go after people that have done things. You know, let's go take them down. Yeah. And it's unbelievable to me, because it's really hard. It's really hard to go, now that you have all this hard-won freedom, which we have, what are you going to do? Does that mean it's going to be easy? No, it's hard for everybody. If you want to go make something, you want to work in the entertainment business, you want to be an author of a novel and become a best-selling author, that's all hard work. But no one's stopping you. And now there's more opportunity than there has ever been in human history. You know, I have all these people that write me and talk about starting YouTube channels. You know what you know how long, as you well know, how long does it take you to start a YouTube channel?
How long? You can have a YouTube channel
About a half an hour.
Yeah.
You know, it takes about a half an hour. What they want, though, what people really want is they want success.
Immediate success.
Yes. And I'm like,
that's what you have to work on. That's where the work.
And that's what I find. We have all this incredible technology. We have all of this, the ability to do what, and that's why, you know, I'm throwing a film festival for my own channel. I'm having the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseur Film Festival. It opens tomorrow. Entries open tomorrow through December 1st. And what I'm hoping to do with this film festival is I want to encourage every single person. I don't care if all you have is a cell phone. Everybody can go make a movie. Now, it might not be Star Wars, The Godfather, or Lawrence of Arabia, but I'm hoping to, amongst our community and anybody who's ever thought about it, I'm hoping that everybody will take, I mean, not everybody will, because making movies is really hard, but I want people already. I threw a poster contest and I've received almost 100 entries of all levels. And what I want to do is try and show people, like, you can go out and do this. You can go make stuff. You know, and in the act of doing something, in the act of creation, you might discover something about yourself that you didn't know, and it might open a whole new horizon for yourself, and you're going to go out and create. And that's what I think, rather than bitch and moan. It's like Star Trek 2. As a matter of cosmic history, it's always been easier to destroy than it is to create. But we should be living in a time of creation now. And now we're only living, it seems to be living in a time of where people want to tear down everything.
Well, literally.
And let's talk about, you know, you want to play the victim card, go right ahead. But I'd like to say that you're not a victim. You have more opportunity than ever before to go out and change your life and to get your voice heard, because we have all of this technology, YouTube being one. You can start your own channel and get your voice heard. If you feel like you've been a victim your whole life, give yourself a voice, a worldwide voice. Here is a place to do it, but it takes work. It takes work.
And people will call out your bullshit. Yeah, when we see, look, anyone in the West that wants, pretty much, not everyone, the inverted commas everyone, but if you live in the Western, if you live in a Western society and you want to call yourself a victim, then you need a fucking wake up call. you couldn't have any better opportunities, regardless of who you are in the West. You couldn't have better opportunities. Doesn't matter your gender, doesn't matter your color, doesn't matter your sexuality, doesn't matter. In the West, you have the best opportunity ever. You got to put the work in, though.
Right.
And that's what people are scared of. They're scared of hard work. They're scared of putting the elbow grease in. They want instant gratification because they've been taught to have instant gratification. You need to get on TikTok right now and you need to be a sensation. You need that 20 million view video right now. So you got people doing all kinds of horrendous stuff, horrible stuff to get seen, to get that instant clout. Because they don't want to put the work in.
No, and I kind of feel that in a way, you know, the funny thing about, we talk about, well, The Prisoner, we're talking about this show 53 years after Arrival aired.
Yeah.
Now, this was really the brainchild of one guy. Mm-hmm. He certainly could have capitalized on the success of Danger Man, but he didn't. He did something unique and something that we're still talking about 53 years from now.
Well, he could have taken on the role of James Bond, turned it down.
You know, and Star Trek was something, ultimately was pretty much a failed TV show. Yeah. The third season of Star Trek was demanded by fans, but they put it on, they got rid of Roddenberry and added Fred Freiberger, and they put it on into a Friday night death slot. But the excellence of Star Trek, the inherent excellence of what people are trying to do in the writing, the directing, certainly the acting, even the visual effects, Star Trek was not a cheap show. But what they put into that show caused it to endure. And it found new life in syndication, and people started watching it. And now 50 years plus later, 54 years later, we're still getting new Star Trek. And that's pretty impressive. And I think that good work. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, again, the problem is, what do people want? They want that the people that are making Star Trek thought because it was Star Trek, they could make whatever and they would get instantaneous success.
Brand equals success.
And they did not put in the work. And the people that did, I mean, you know, Star Trek, we've never had a team so far. The original team that was creating Discovery, Brian Fuller, was replaced, got kicked to the curb. And all of these things have happened. I mean, and now they're not even creating new Star Trek. They're creating it's all variations on a theme. I mean, Lower Decks, I guess, was new, but there's so many references there. It just is all about old Star Trek. But where's the new Star Trek? Picard is about Picard, but where is a brand new? I mean, Discovery was set in the TOS era, but not really. It's not really the TOS era.
Do you know what era it's set in? The fucking bullshit era. That's the era it's set in, mate.
The era of today.
Yeah, it's set. I like. Do you know the only good to come out of the Prime timeline and the Kelvin timeline is that the Kelvin timeline can fuck off over there. Fuck off over there, and we'll just keep the Prime timeline to ourselves. Thank you very much.
Well, it's funny because the Prime timeline, for anybody that's a Star Trek fan, I mean, the canonical Star Trek timeline, part of the appeal of Star Trek is that canonical timeline. So you can go buy the 2-volume Star Trek encyclopedia. So you can watch. I mean, when a show would make one reference or two references to something that would come into the past, it was fun. But watching a show that literally in one episode will reference 100 Star Trek things, you're like, that's not genuine. You know, that's just being somebody. It's like a hipster talking about Star Trek in a coffee house, making 100 different references to something because you went on to Memory Alpha and pulled all this stuff.
How many episodes did Enterprise Next Gen was though? About 100.
There's 178.
178.
But the thing is, it's 178 if you include the two-parter Encounter at Farpoint and All Good Things, because they were split into single episodes. Yeah. So 178 with those single episodes.
Probably had 10 references to TOS in those 100 episodes.
Yeah, I mean that was by design too. I mean they didn't even allow. It wasn't until the third season that they had Sarek, and as Ira Bear would tell you in our documentaries, he had to beg Rick Berman to have Sarek even mention Spock. They had one mention of Spock, and Patrick Stewart says it during the episode.
I can just remember, obviously, DeForest in the first episode.
But they never called him McCoy.
No, Admiral.
Admiral, that's right.
Then you had the mention of Spock with Sarek. Then you had, is it Reclamation? Two-parter? Is it Reclamation?
Redemption, part 1 and 2?
Is it Redemption?
Unification.
Unification. Parts 1 and 2. Then you had James Doonan.
Yeah, Relics in season 6.
I'm struggling to find too many more. So your show has got to stand on its own.
Yeah, and that's what they did. I mean, that was the genius of Next Gen, is they had to make it stand on its own. And when they did reference something, it was done in a very interesting, respectful way.
Couple more, and then we got to wrap up because we could go on.
We're way over time.
We could go on. Mick Wynn with a £5 super chat as RMB. Maybe after the Prisoner run, you could do TNG run. Well, there's 176 episodes, so yes. Probably not. But we are going to do. There is a special show that we're going to do.
Yeah,
and I don't know. Robert and I will probably chat, and we'll see if there's something, because this is very. We keep having to say this. This is very specific. This is a very specific love that we both have for the show, something which isn't being really done.
No,
anywhere.
And there's been so many Star Trek review things, and I think doing this is unique because not a lot of people know this show. So I think part of the reason you and I both thought this was appealing is that maybe we can shed some light and get people to watch The Prisoner.
Yes.
That was something that was fun.
This is born of nothing but love.
Yes.
Deckard the Couch Guy with 50 Norwegian kroner. Lubricate with some whiskey and see if you can get to Tom Waits' territory. Well, actually, I don't have any whiskey, but I do have a bit of Kraken right here.
I've got sparkling water.
Well, if I just... that is beautiful rum. That is beautiful rum. Stubble McShave with a 20 Swedish krona. Jake in later DS9 is the most underrated character. The relationship between that father and son is fantastic.
It's, it's one of the great, it was unsung at the time, but a single black father who at the time, especially in the 90s in America, there were not a whole lot of single black fathers, and black men who were single fathers were certainly not getting the attention they deserved. And they never even made a big deal of it. It was never made. They never even talked about race.
Even mentioned until they did the
Far Beyond the Stars episode.
Yeah, Far Beyond the Stars. That's the only time.
They didn't have to. I mean, if you think about how diverse the cast of Next Generation or Deep Space Nine was, and the characters that they would bring in, they didn't make a big deal about it.
But it was never ever going to be a big deal. Like it was never. Geordie's color is never mentioned in TNG. Neither is Worf's or anything like that, because the show was written as that time period. So in that time period, it meant nothing.
Right, exactly. I mean, you're dealing with aliens, so it's like the funny thing about
Discovery's just fucked in the head.
If you're a spacefaring race, the aliens will look at you like, oh, you're from Earth. the way our human species should be looked at. Oh, you're human beings from the planet Earth. That you think they're going to care about our sexuality or our color? Or no, you're just all human beings from the planet Earth.
Do you think we are when we're going out seeing these aliens? Do you think we're going to give two shits?
Yeah, I mean,
things with fucking antenna and suckers and all manner. Do you think we're going to give a fucking toss about pigmentation of skin?
No.
Exactly.
No, I mean, can you imagine like I talk a lot about on my show. It's an ongoing joke about how far would you go if you could make love to an alien? Like you have Sarek and Amanda, a Vulcan and a human. I mean, that transcends anything that people could do to each other on this planet, whether it's same-sex couplings, whether you're going to have orgies, you're going to be trans, whatever. You're still all human beings, no matter what. What happens when you decide to hook up with a Vulcan?
Whoa, but I mean, whoa. But does that mean that Sarek only had sex with Amanda once every 7 years?
No, and I cannot stand that. I'll bet you that Vulcans are some of the best lovers in the galaxy, but they have to make it every 7 years because that's biological. That's like salmon coming back to spawn, as Spock says. I think Vulcans would be some of the best lovers in the galaxy because they would turn it into high art. They would bring philosophy and logic. And the whole point is they're not beyond a physical pleasure would be something that would help the emotions. That would be something that would free your mind. I'll tell you something. I think a Vulcan lover would be somebody that would blow your mind if you're a human, maybe rivaled only by the Deltans, because they've got the pheromones that are coming out. And this is something that I think is this is another thing that I find completely annoying about Star Trek, modern Star Trek, even the way fans treat Star Trek, is they key on these things without extrapolating out what it would mean. Like Vulcan culture, Vulcans have emotions. They just control them.
They just control them.
And they apply the teachings of Surak, the idea of logic. So the whole point is that they're very disciplined mentally. And whereas we are completely undisciplined, we're slaves to our emotions. Yeah. And that's my problem with how Star Trek is written. They don't understand that everything is so black and white. It's all like archetypical. Well, Vulcans don't have emotions. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And just like, well, Vulcans only have sex once every 7 years. No, they have to procreate or try and procreate once every 7 years. I think, I'll tell you something. I think Amanda liked when Sarek dropped the D on her probably nightly because Sarek took her to places that no one else could. And I feel that way. Like if you're going to, if you're gonna, and on the show we talk about like, would you have sex with a xenomorph from Alien? And I'm like, I couldn't go there. That's my sexuality would not allow me to figure out a way to make it with an alien. I couldn't go that far. Like I could screw an Andorian. You know, they're humanoid looking enough. There's hot Andorian girls. I could go there. I just couldn't go to something that doesn't look humanoid enough. I'm not that evolved as a person. So we've had this, you know, we've had this ongoing joke. Like, how far could you go? Like, well, I couldn't.
Interesting episode of Next Gen when there was some pretty much human-looking species, and one of them did say that humans and our race are not sexually compatible.
Right.
So whatever's going on down there ain't happening.
Right. Exactly. And I think that is an interesting exploration of something that we and then when you're thinking about human beings, if you think about us as a planet, there's nothing that we as the human species could do within our own, whether you want to change your sex, whether you want to have same-sex couplings or you want to be bisexual or whatever. Once you leave Earth, nobody would care, because if you're now starting to have sexual relations with other beings, then it would be a whole different kind of a thing. You'd have to even figure out what turns each other on. Like if Klingons get really turned,
literally be interspecies,
right?
Intercourse.
And then people would have these things. Well, that's what makes, you know, if you're going to go be with a Vulcan, how is that any different than being with, say, a dog? They're both different species of people.
These things have been brought up. You know, these questions have been these topics have been dealt with in episodes, and that's the beauty of Star Trek. That's nuance, folks. That's how you take a difficult subject and put it into a science fiction context.
One of my favorite,
as well as educate.
Enterprise. You're going to come up to one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek is an Enterprise episode called Cogenitor, where there is a third gender, and the third gender is treated like dirt, but they need a third gender to procreate. And of course, Trip gets all upset about this, but it's a really compelling episode of science fiction. Yeah, you know, and these people seem perfectly lovely. They meet. It's a first contact mission. They find another alien species examining the same star that they are, and they meet, and everything seems hunky dory until we find out a horrible thing about the way they treat this third gender they need to procreate.
The beauty of, number one, no prime directive, so it's all a fucking mess. And number two, we always process things through human eyes, human brain.
Absolutely.
And we don't take another species way of life into consideration. There's I think that wonderful moment in the first episode of Enterprise where they go to the planet to look for the female Silurian, and the mother is taking the breathing apparatus off the kid, and Trip's like looking, and he's sort of like looking, and then he snaps. Oi, leave the fucking kid alone. And T'Pau has to come out and says, she's weaning her child off of this. You should learn about things before you. And it's just like, it's brilliant. Because you can empathize with Trip. Because this kid looks like he's being fucked around with. But the truth of the matter is he doesn't understand the species and he doesn't understand the situation. So he's looking at it through human eyes and he's processing it through a human context. This is where clever sci-fi comes in. That's why when you get episodes like Cogenitor, when you get episodes when you have Riker with the non-binary race,
the Janai, the outcast,
yes, you can take these what would be classed right now today as woke concepts. You can take these woke concepts and turn them into highly entertaining and thought-provoking because they're not judgmental,
right?
because you'll see things through the Riker's eyes, you'll see things through Tucker's eyes, you'll see things through your own human eyes, but you will always be posed the alien question.
Oh, yeah.
Which essentially is, we're actually just showing you the other side of the coin. How we're showing you the Republican to the conservative, or the conservative to the Republican. We're showing you the religious to the agnostic. You know, we're showing you the flip side, but we're doing it in we're doing it in an entertaining way that allows you to hopefully just open your mind a little bit and see things from a different perspective. Whichever, you know, you agree, disagree, doesn't matter. Just open your eyes and have a look.
Well, I mean, that's another thing, like the idea of, like, when you first saw the original series and Lieutenant Uhura was on the bridge, there's never mention made that she was black. No. And the only time
apart from Lincoln, yeah.
Well, that was, I was going to say, the only time was in Savage Curtain in the 3rd season when Lincoln actually says, "What a charming negress."
Yeah.
He says that, and then even it's Lincoln who goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say something wrong?" And it's Uhura that's like, "No." I mean, in the 23rd century, we've learned not to fear words. Yeah. And what was interesting about that is they deal with those kinds of things, and that was it. But it was never mentioned. And I think, like, even if you think about the future, like, for instance, say if someone's trans, right? If you want to be trans in the future, if they would probably, first of all, be able to analyze and feel like, okay, this person's brain was in the womb had more estrogen or more testosterone. So that's why they do feel that way, because indeed they are. Their brains. And so if you're trans, you could just, if you wanted to transition, they would have the medical technology where they would just do that for you.
Yes.
You know, and if you wanted to be, if you were trans, then the medical technology is such as that they would be able to identify it medically and go like, yes, indeed, we understand that because we have the technology to measure that you're correct. You know, you should have been, you were born a man, but you should have been a woman according to your brain patterns. And yes, and we will take care of that. So, and then nobody would care. Like, it would be something that nobody would even talk about. You know, it'd just be something that you would do. And so it wouldn't be an issue anymore. And the same, I think, would be true of same-sex couples. If they wanted to be together, they just would be, and nobody would say anything because we're hundreds of years in the future and nobody would care. It wouldn't be an issue. And the funny thing about it is, Star Trek, whilst Kirk would like get down with women or whatever, it wasn't like necessarily overt. Star Trek has never been an overtly sexual show. It's certainly been titillating.
No, there's a misconception that he's a ladies' man.
Yes, and it's just that unless the show is like Riker getting involved with Soren, one of the Janai, you know, Soren, who has feelings of being more female than male, or in a genderless society, that was really edgy. And I've had friends of mine tell me, I have a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine who's gay, and he and I've gone around about this particular episode because he's always going, yeah, but if they really were edgy, they would have made a man play that role instead of a woman. And I'm like, look, man, back in 1990 or whatever, 91, you could only get away with so much. I mean, you have to ease people into these things, and that was still a pretty heady episode. And at the end, they convert her. It's a horrifying episode because
but it wouldn't have worked if it was a man, because the point wasn't to say we can have a homosexual relationship.
Right.
The point of the episode was to show a genderless race where a portion of their society moved towards the masculine or the feminine.
Right.
You're living we were living in an era, we still should be, where we have the masculine and the feminine. We don't understand the non-binary because we are wired one way or another.
Through millions of years of biology.
Riker,
of evolution.
Exactly.
DNA.
Science, folks. So Riker, who is a heterosexual male, wouldn't have been attracted to a masculine, I want to say Janai.
That's true. No, you're
He
absolutely right.
would not have been attracted to it, so it wouldn't work because of the way that Riker is wired. So you had to have a female-leaning Janai and a heterosexual male because you had to see it from Riker's perspective of male, masculine to feminine.
And also to add to that, when you first meet the Trill with Odan, the Trill Odan, and I think it's the host,
the Crusher, the host,
and Odan, the male host dies, and the symbiote is placed into a woman's body.
No, it's put into Riker first.
Yeah, it's put into Riker, but then it's as they're waiting for the new host, and then the final new host is a woman.
But the Riker part's important because Crusher still sees Odan in Riker, struggles because she sees Riker first, but then she fucks him. She fucks Riker.
Yeah, she does.
So Crusher fucks Riker as well as fucking Odan. So she's fucked Odan. Now she's fucked Riker as Odan. But because the human can't accept the symbiote for too long, and then it's put into the female host.
Yes.
Crusher is heterosexual. And so she says herself, maybe it's a failing of humans.
Yeah, which
I can't take these changes.
And that's what's interesting about that is I love that first episode because it deals with those kinds of issues. And it to do it in the way it did was pretty groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah,
and it really, and then you see in Deep Space Nine, Jadzia Dax hooks up with her former.
I just want to go back to the host because to me, the host is as positive a sexuality message as you're ever going to get because. Basically, it's saying you are who you are.
Right.
You can't change that. So, for argument's sake, let's just say Crusher was a gay woman. And she had the female, then she had Troy. Then it went into a male, and she couldn't do that. That's because she is who she is.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right.
So,
and what
going back 30 years and saying on prime time television, it's okay to be who you are.
Absolutely.
And
also to have a race like the Trill in the first place that's later explored in Deep Space Nine, especially because Jadzia hooks up with same sex with another Trill from her life. When the Dax symbiote meets somebody, they deal with that. In Rejoined. You go back and you see these two characters. The Trill don't care. The Trill jump the symbiotes who live hundreds of years jump. They're both men and women. Yes. The hosts are human hosts are both men and women, and it has no bearing. I mean, their sexuality is such apparently
that has no gender.
Right. And so I think
to the host, it's to the symbiote. The host is the host. I'm a female host. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. And I think, I mean, in a way, I kind of, when it comes to, when you think about things like sexuality isn't procreation. Use the same equipment, and in a way, I kind of wish in my mind, I was a little bit more, I wasn't as hardwired as I am, because you could have a lot more interesting sexual experiences if you weren't so limited by your own heterosexuality. You have
to go back to the Greeks. You have to go back to the Romans. When we speak of the Spartan army,
sure.
What do you think of? You think of incredibly fit fighters that were trained to the peak of physicality, which they were. They were also told to take gay lovers.
Yeah.
In the army, in your actual army. So if your lover was killed in battle, it would incite you to fight harder because you would be fucking pissed.
Yeah.
So you have this very masculine element to it, but they were told, take a male lover.
And I think, again, when you're looking at different, I mean, if you think about the idea that from a biological standpoint, human arousal we've limited ourselves now in the modern age, puritanical, religious reasons, whatever. We've limited ourselves, so we can't. If you were born in a culture like ancient Greece, we would feel differently. You'd be able to deal with the spectrum of that, because human sexual behavior is different than procreating. So you would just think, and like in the Spartan army. So if we look back on it now, would you call them gay? Or was that learned behavior? Because
I think it was probably. I would say it would be behavioral education.
Right, absolutely. But in the future, humanity, nobody's going to care. I mean, we have an era coming down the pike where I think 50 years from now, most people are going to have robot lovers, just as a par for the course.
I can. Yeah. God, this is a topic of conversation we could completely go off on. But yeah, we are innately sexual creatures, constantly thinking and constantly evolving with technology.
Mm-hmm.
It would be naive to think that our desires, our yearnings would not evolve with said technology.
Oh, I read this. One of my favorite science fiction books I've read in a long time. It was nominated for the Hugo in 2006. It's a book called Blind Sight by a guy named Peter Watts. But in the book, it takes place in the future. But the main character meets a woman, and the sexuality, it takes place in like 2080. And the fact that she meets him and he mostly only has human lovers surprises her, because everybody, having a sex robot is part of the course. It's become a normal part of our society.
What's the film where Joaquin Phoenix has a relationship with the AI?
Oh, Her.
Oh,
that film is incredible. It's one of my favorite science fiction films of the last 20 years.
I mean, it sounds preposterous, but it kind of doesn't. You know what I mean? With the way that technology is evolving, you could kind of understand somebody kind of going down that route.
Well, I mean, what's also really interesting is if you had an AI that had an algorithm to understand you and to learn from you, so you're literally interacting with a mind. So who cares if the mind is organic or artificial?
The Outer Limits, when it came back in the 80s, they did the robot lover, didn't they? And he got jealous.
Yeah.
And the robot lover got
jealous. The thing that was Her has one of the most shocking moments I've ever seen in any movie in it. And it's the moment where Joaquin Phoenix asks the AI and realizes for the very first time that this AI is not just having a relationship with him. And she's like, he's like, how many people are you having a relationship with? And she's like 6,497. And because that's what an AI can do. And I remember watching the movie, my heart just sank. I'm like, oh my God. Because you as the audience believe that they've got this really interesting relationship developing, and you realize that, and indeed they do, but we as human beings want to believe that that kind of relationship can only be shared by two individuals, entities, but an AI can have different relationships with 6,000 people. And I'm like, oh,
Robert, we're gonna have to wrap this up.
Yes, I gotta go do my own show.
They want to know you've got a show to make.
I got to do my show.
What the homework is, and I could continue to talk for hours about this sort of stuff.
Well, now we're getting into heady sci-fi concepts. We could talk. I wish we would do more of this on various shows.
Hey, look, I am always willing to come on to your channel and have a conversation about something like this.
We should do that. We should pick sci-fi concepts and maybe just do some deep dives into whether they're concepts that are presented in Star Trek and things about race relations, sexuality, technology, space travel. I mean, pick a subject and do a deep dive into those subjects. And that would be fun. But yes, so what is our homework? What is our next episode? As people know, we have our own order.
Yeah, it is Herr General. It's the general.
The general.
We are revisiting an old friend for the last time. So the homework is The General, which will be on Rob's channel next Wednesday, midday Pacific, 8 my time. Just a couple of super chats to get through. Gladiator with a $2 super chat. No message deleted, but thank you for the super chat. And Mick Wynn with a £2 super chat. I've been getting it tonight. Gonna make it happen. Okay. Good effort, son. And we had a new member as well. Paul, thank you very much indeed for becoming a Jedi Master as well. Thank you very much. That was phenomenal. Thank you. We've gone way over tonight. We've done Prisoner, and then we've gone on to sci-fi. So barely anyone left. So clearly I think you enjoyed it, and thank you very much indeed, folks. I know we've kind of pushed it because people are like, "Oh, my fucking homework." But
people are asking me, "Why aren't you on your show?"
You get into it and you just can't stop.
I know,
because these are conversations which, these interesting conversations which can lead to.
You make me want to come over to England and sit with you in a pub and just drink pint after pint after pint and have these conversations until closing time.
Yeah, just the more pissed you get, the more ridiculous, and yet it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes. I mean, if I could have my whiskey and my beer, my pint backs.
The next morning you wake up and you're just like, what the fuck was that about?
Surrounded by all the hot toys we've been playing with, like,
just
look at this Mandalorian.
Oh, hey, go on then, one ladies.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah. You didn't see that. You'll see that some other time, but you didn't see that. Massive thank you to everyone who came back tonight. Massive thank you to my mods for doing a great job. You're always phenomenal. I love you, my ladies. Huge thank you to everyone who hit the super chat button, everyone who hit the join button. Robert, wonderful to reconnect with you, sir.
I'm so glad you're feeling better.
Well, I just love these positive streams. I love these positive times where we can just discuss awesomeness or the infinitude.
Well, despite the fact that it seems like the rest of the world is falling apart, I do think we do live in wondrous times. And there you can choose to rather than be depressed. I mean, I know a lot of things are seem like they're going to hell in a handbasket, but there's we're surrounded by a lot of awesomeness, and we do have the technology to do shows like this, and the fact that we can do this, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I think the audience have enjoyed it. And I say that from the fact that the view count's been very consistent, and from the fact that people just like it. But we all need some positivity. This is why escapism is so important. This is why the entertainment industry needs to take its head out of its arse and understand the world doesn't revolve around you. The world actually revolves around your audience. And that is who is the important aspect, because if you stop producing what people want to see, they'll go to another form of entertainment, whether it be YouTube, whether it be video games, whether it be mobile phones, they'll go elsewhere. So these shows that we can talk about in a positive light, they energize me.
Me too. I mean, the stuff that we've got, I mean, even whether it's, I mean, we get the best action figures we've ever had in our Hot Toys figures. We've got the best video games we've ever had. We've got the best home entertainment we've ever had. 4K discs. I mean, they just announced Basic Instincts coming out on 4K. Hubba.
Can't wait to get that. The shit out of that one.
I just can't wait to see.
Robert, will the
Jan de Bont cinematography? When the new Die Hard 4K disc came out last year, it was a revelation. Finally, getting these movies looking the way they're supposed to live or look, and I think we're living in fantastic times, despite the fact.
4K Metropolis.
Oh man, I'd love to get that. I'm sure it's coming. I mean, I have Kind Hearts and Coronets in 4K. I never thought I'd get that.
The 1080p is goody good. What would the 4K be like?
It's amazing. It's tasty. And we're getting all kinds of great stuff. They just announced Serpico, the Al Pacino movie Serpico, for 4K, but only in Germany. So
it's something. Robert, you go. You need to eat and do your show.
I'm going to go do my show.
Or
Yes.
maybe you can't do the eating part and you just do your show.
Yeah, I just got to go drain the main vein and then I'll go on my show.
So as we say, folks, we'll see you next week on Robert's channel. Be seeing you.